All right, this time we're going to resume the meeting of September 5th, 2017. Councilmember Gillio will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gillio?
Here.
Vice Mayor Clower?
Here.
Mayor Velasquez?
Here.
Councilmember Friend? Councilmember Luna? City Manager Avera? City Attorney Diaz?
Present.
Police Chief Westrick?
Here.
Thank you. Verification of agenda posting.
The agenda for the City of Hollister City Council meeting of September 5th, 2017 was posted on the bulletin board on August 31st, 2017 at 8:21 a.m. per Government Code Section 54954.2.
Thank you. City Attorney, do you want to report out from closed session?
Yes. On item 1, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 for potential cases, no action was taken. On item 2, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 subsection B, that is the 400 block referendum petition. Action was taken by a vote of 4-0. The City Council instructed the City Clerk to submit at the next regular board meeting the petition for the 400 block referendum for a decision by the City Council as to whether to submit that petition to a referendum or to decide to nullify the resolution that approved the development and disposition agreement with regards to the 400 block. On item 3, conference with legal counsel pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 subsection B, there was one potential case and no action was taken on that item. And finally, item 4, conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.8. Action was taken by a vote of 3-2, and special counsel for the city was instructed to make an offer to the Hollister Firefighters Union Local 3395. That's all I have to report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Yes, just one little bit of housekeeping items. We reserved 4 chairs in the back corner and the area for folks that are wanting to do some live streaming of our meetings. It's absolutely okay, but we do wish that you would move to that corner, and those folks that are around those seats, be aware that you may be on somebody's feed. I think that's it, right?
Okay. Thank you.
And no live streaming during breaks, because that's not public meeting time.
Okay. We have a proclamation tonight. I don't have it here with me. Do you have a copy of it? For the National Recovery Month honoring Sun Street. Are they here?
Patricia Garza? Okay, they are here.
Yeah. Come on over this way, guys. Whereas Sun Street Centers works to prevent alcohol and drug addiction by offering education, prevention, treatment, and recovery to individuals and families regardless of income level, and now therefore I, Ignacio Velasquez, Mayor of City of Hollister, do hereby declare September 2017 as National Recovery Month in the City of Hollister, and do hereby honor Sun Street Centers for 49 years of outstanding support to communities and acknowledge their organization's contributions to helping families in their recovery. And thank you for all you do here.
Hello, my name is Marciano Huerta. I'm the Chief Program Officer at Sun Street Centers. And on behalf of Sun Street Centers, I would like to thank the Mayor Velasquez and, of course, the Council for this very nice proclamation. And like the Mayor said, it is our mission to offer education, prevention, treatment, and recovery to individuals and families regardless of income level. And let's see, Sun Street Centers currently has 2 sober living environments in Hollister, one for women and one for men. And I'm very happy to announce that Sun Street Centers is in process of bringing in a treatment program for women struggling with addiction right here in Hollister. Trish Garza is our sober living environment house manager for the women, and Sueña Romero, our licensed clinical social worker, is our clinical director of Recovery Family Services. She will oversee our programs here in Hollister. And we just want to say thank you for your support, as we will definitely promote a safe and healthy community. We are honored. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move to the consent agenda. Are there any items council would like to pull? Councilmember Luna?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Just for correction, the minutes, that would be on the agenda, the consent
1A?
agenda, the minutes. Yeah,
Okay.
A1.
A1. Is there any other items from council? Yes, sir. I'd like to pull item A6 and A7.
A5 and A6.
A5. Are there any items from the public?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item A1. Councilmember Luna?
Yes. Just a correction that that I caught and was corrected already. For the August 14th meeting, apparently my name was left out of being present, yet it shows a lot of action on the minutes. But anyway, thank you, Christine, for making that correction.
Okay. Any speakers?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 5.
Billy, you're going to answer that one? This is a resolution approving professional service agreement for
You can say me if you
transportation
want.
consultants for traffic engineering. I'm not understand why they want to do that. Who's doing that?
The speed survey?
Yeah. Is that for the police department? Or
Well-
is that for increases in speeds or?
Yes, a speed survey to establish speed limits. Every 5 years, the city has to redo these things. And
So that's just to see the ones that are there working or the ones that need to be increased or decreased or whatever?
Yes.
Okay.
And then when they're that's what you have to legally post the speed limits on the streets, which allows our police department to write their citations.
Okay. So it allows them to use radar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for council? Do we have any speaker cards on that item?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right, sir.
I'll make a motion that we approve item E5.
There's a motion. Is there a
Second.
second? Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Move to item A6.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item, we did a very similar program last year with the same amount of money. The only difference is that last year the United Way and the Community Foundation were partners in coming up with the distribution. Community Foundation is not doing it this year. It'll be strictly the United Way of San Bernardino County. The amount is $2,500, and they usually use this money as a matching portion or grant, so it ends up turning into several more dollars. So,
And as I pointed out before, I appreciate the effort that all the nonprofits put together, but I have concerns if we go back to the times where we were giving away or using our dollars on a lot of the nonprofit groups. I don't think we're at that point financially yet that we can afford to do it. I just wanted to state that for the record. Is there any questions or comments from the other council members?
No, I agree that I don't think we're in the position to do this. I also have a question, I'll bring it up later, about $2,500 that we donated for the Parks and Recs to do a program, and then Parks and Recs decided not to do it.
Sure.
Well, the program's a success. Where's the money?
Councilmember Friend, is your microphone on? Can you hear him?
yeah, I was trying to recall what program that.
I'll bring it up later.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Any speaker cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there a motion? No motion. The item dies for lack of a motion. We'll move on to item A7.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is authorizing us to enter into a reimbursement agreement with Sunny Slope County Water District for the design costs related to the crosstown pipeline. It's as you are, most of you are well aware, it's a pretty significant project. At the end of the day, it's about a $7 million project. This first part is roughly $587 or total, with a $210,000 coming from our portion, which is about 37%. So if there's any questions, feel free. I will do my best to answer them.
I think if just for the public's sake, if we can understand where this pipeline is going through.
So this pipeline brings the new treated water from the West Hills water treatment facility. As you are well aware, that it's connected right now at wells number 4 and 5 in town. This line will actually stretch heading east. Predominantly, the plan line is basically east down Nash Road to potentially the new bypass at the high school. That it'll go around basically the new road at the high school around the football field. It'll likely now then go north a little bit on San Benito Street to an easement that we have at Bundeston. Bundeston to Cienega all the way down to Southside Road. Southside Road then east and connects to two of Sunny Slope's wells, basically terminating at fire station number 2.
So this will help with the mix on.
Yeah, this is what we'll be using to address the chromium-6 issues in town, and it also just provides us with a much better, higher quality water. So.
Okay. Any questions from council? Any speaker cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll go on to public input. This is a time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. When the city clerk calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the city council. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes per subject. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from taking action on any item not on the agenda. Do we have speaker cards tonight?
Yes, we do. The last item, who made the motion?
I did.
Thank you. I thought so. Okay. Gary Coates.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Gary Coates here on behalf this evening of the Monterey Bay Alternative Medicine Group, that we have a proposed dispensary permit that was reviewed 2 meetings ago by the City Council. At that time, there I know is additional items that are coming on in this agenda that deal with the dispensaries, and for some reason our item was not placed on the agenda. I had communicated with your administration staff through email requesting that we be put on the agenda, but we're not, and so I was merely requesting the council's authorization and ability to be heard under that action item, Mr. Mayor. And not present anything at this point because I don't think that would be appropriate, but to come under that item.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Marty Richmond.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Marty Richmond from Hollister. The other night we had a discussion about managing developments or development management, and during that discussion, the city manager said, well, Marty, what would you do if I gave you, a few hundred allocations that are left over from award homes that have been sitting around for 20 years? Well, I wouldn't do anything because he can't give them to me. They're vested. They're vested like all the other stuff that's vested that we vested 20 years ago. And that is exactly the problem. So I am supporting a timeout on development management. And that timeout is based on the fact that from the discussions, there are several hundred items that are already vested. That doesn't count what the county has vested in Santa Ana Ranch, which is almost 800 more units that are going to impact us just as if they were in the city when it comes to Fairview and Union and Airline Highway. I don't want to make that mistake again. Now, the mayor has suggested that we not take any more applications. I don't think that is correct, as long as applications are not a vesting step. We should do all the steps we should do that are not vesting steps so that we have a legal way to say we're putting in a new management system and here's how it works. I do think it should be a time certain. I don't think we should just say, oh, we're stopping and we don't know when we'll start again. I think we ought to put something on the calendar and we ought to meet that time. We got to get the staff to make sure and the council itself to make sure it meets that time to set up a program that will manage it so that we do not give vested interests that sit around for 20 years before they're exercised, and the city doesn't look anything like it looked when we gave the vested interest, and we have no way of updating it. The only thing we can update normally is the impact fees if we don't have a development agreement. So yes, we get the new impact fees, but it doesn't do any good because we can't really evaluate anything. It's all locked in for us. What we need to do is, I disagree with the city manager on this issue. We need to do more development agreements so that we have flexibility, so that we can ask for what we want, not for the minimum required by the state, because that's all an impact fee is. It is the minimum. It is the get even number. You don't get anything extra out of an impact fee. That would be illegal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Juan Guevara.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. My name is Juan Guevara, and I'm a police officer with the Hollister Police Department. I was born and raised in Hollister, and I graduated from San Benito High School as well. I have been honored and blessed to patrol these streets for the last 4 years. In the coming weeks, the Hollister Police Officer Association will go into negotiations with the City Council. We look forward to these conversations, and we hope that they will be fruitful. Recently, the Hollister Freelance released an article that shed light that the Hollister Police Department was one of the poorest compensated departments on the Central Coast. And we hope that through these conversations, together we'll be able to change that and prevent more officers from leaving to other agencies to better provide their loved ones. The Hollister Police Officer Association would like to thank Councilmember Luna, Friend, Clower, and Gilio for taking time from their schedule and talking to us about a topic that's very important to us, and we appreciate it. We look forward to these talks, and we hope that together we can reach a fair contract. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
William Lee.
Good evening, council and staff. My name is William Lee, Bill Lee as I'm known, and my wife and I own San Benito Shutter here in town. We employ 100 people. And the reason why I'm here to speak to you is last week there was a lot of talk, growth, not growth, but a lot of it, both sides wanted jobs. And I wanted to talk to you about jobs as someone who started a business from grassroots here and is providing jobs in this community. As you can imagine, with employing 100 people, there's some very good paying jobs that are part of that. And a little over 2.5 years ago, we were the victim of a very serious embezzlement from one of our internal staff members, and we lost over $500,000. We were forced to sell part of our company in order to be able to continue to provide for our family after being in this community for 25 years employing people. We still don't have an investigation from your city police department. And it's disturbing because we really would hope that if you want jobs, you would support the very jobs that you have first and foremost. But the can's been kicked down the road continuously. Yes, I've met with your city manager. Yes, I've met with your police chief. But the fact remains, the investigation's not gotten done and not gotten a file over to the district attorney so that they can take a look at it. And we've had to bite and scream to get what little action has happened on this case. If you want jobs here, you can't chase away the ones you have. I have had the opportunity to influence people whether to come into this community and open businesses or not. And I regretfully tell you that just a few months ago, I was brought a group from Santa Clara University, and I advised them to go to Stockton and not come here with their new business. And I did so because how can you open a business and not be protected by your very community? I'm not asking for anything above and beyond what any other citizen should get. I'm just asking for a fair investigation. My wife and I will eventually start another business. I don't know where we'll do it. Quite frankly, the outcome of this will probably sway us tremendously. Because if this community continues to turn its back on us, we'll find a community that will embrace us and that does want us and will protect us. We don't feel protected, we feel vulnerable, and we feel betrayed by our very community. And so I realize you can't take any action on what I'm here to speak on tonight, but all 5 of you do interface with staff members, and if you could, as individuals, poke and prod and encourage the staff to get this action handled, because it's not been handled. And again, I'm not asking for favoritism, but just treat us fair and give us the opportunity to survive in this community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Susan Logue.
Good evening. Hi, can you hear me? Thank you. I'm Susan Logue, Hollister resident, and as a friend of the library, I'd like to thank the mayor and the city council for your continued support of the library. I have a brief update as to the summer reading program. This summer we had 2 separate reading clubs. We had a children's and a teen. That was our first time to try that. And we had 441 children sign up and 65 teens. And then we started a separate adult reading club, and that was really successful too. 20 adults signed up for that. So in all, the summer reading program this year was one of our most successful. We'll be having a celebration in October. It's, I think, October 18th. is National Friends of the Library Week. So we'll be sending you an invitation if you'd like to come and be honored at our celebration. And then finally, as we look forward for the library and its many needs, we could really use more hours open for the library. And presently, the city gives the library about $15,000 a year for our budget. And that comes down to about 40 cents per city resident. So we had a suggestion of trying to increase the amount of money that's given per resident, perhaps $1, $2, $3 per person to help with additional hours. Because right now we're really full most days and most nights when you come by to see us. But, you know, we've got those staggered hours because we don't have enough really funding to be open as much as we'd like to. Although we all are open on Saturday now, so that's great. So anyone, to thank you so much for your time and your continued support, and hope to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara Rubio.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I was a little encouraged to hear your out-of-session vote. At least you're going to address the 400 block issue. I know some of you go online and look at the conversation with the residents of Hollister discussing our concerns about the 400 block. I know Hollister is investing a lot of time and energy into selling itself. We're building signs to get people into the county. We're talking about businesses. We're talking about encouraging the community to use our resources, get people to come into town. Yet we want to present a beautiful Main Street that represents us, and we don't want an anchor. A city park is an anchor. My husband and I have traveled extensively, not only in California, all over the United States. We go to small towns our size, smaller. They all have a city park with a bandstand. They encourage their community to come down. They encourage their tourists to come. We need that 400 block to represent us, to represent our rural community, to represent our urban community. Watsonville, small town, that small town square, that city park has been there for ages. As long as I can remember, I don't care what day of the week you drive down Main Street in Watsonville, that city park is being used. Whether it's mariachi music on the weekend, farmers markets, boutiques, it's always being used. We could use that here. That would represent who San Benito County and Hollister is. Really consider that when you think about a vote. Thank you.
Thank you
Brent
very much.
Hawks.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. Thank you for taking the time to listen and sort of paint a target on your back. A couple of things I wanted to talk about a little bit tonight. It's been said that the current marijuana ordinance was created with a lot of community input, and I want to disagree with that just a little bit in that after the community input was terminated, when the council elected to disband the ad hoc committee, that's when all the controversial aspects of the ordinance came into play. It's also been said that the ordinance can be changed. Can in quotes. It's going to be hard to change it once it's actually implemented, once it's in play. And in particular, it's going to be really hard to roll back anything, to make it stricter. It'd be a lot easier to make it easier, or to make, to relax things a little bit. The county has learned that lesson, and I urge you to learn from them that it's easier to start out strict and relax things a little bit later. Finally, a lot of those disputed portions of the ordinance are now under a little bit of a cloud. Some of that centering over Mr. Clower. And so, Mr. Clower, I urge you to... Pardon me?
We could hold from using council members' names or any question.
My apologies.
On their activity. Thank you.
I would urge those involved to simply recuse themselves from anything related to the marijuana ordinance until that's cleared up. Finally, it's become clear that marijuana is a big business. It's a big industry. I feel bad for those who would like to see it be a cottage industry. It's not going to happen. And they're here to play hardball, as you've seen. They've made threats already. And that leads me to some point of saying, that it's time to be strict and then ease up later as we figure out how to be in control of what's going on. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. City Manager's report.
Just a couple of things, and I wish I could have done this a while ago too, when Mr. Richmond made a comment about the library and the city's financing or funding of it, that $15,000. And for Susan, I think she just left. I want everybody, I know the council knows, but I'd like everybody out here in the audience and in that may be watching as well, that the way that the property tax is divvied up between the city and the county many years ago during the Prop 13 years, the library was actually taken into account. So, and as we go through these iterations of property tax sharing agreements where the city gets 25% and the county gets 75%, a big bulk of that reason why we only get 25% is because the council has made a determination that the library is important, and we do fund several $100,000s of that library. I think that if anybody would like to take some time and come visit with me, like I said, I'm going to be here Saturday. If we want to talk about library stuff, we certainly can. There's a report that's out right now that basically kind of shows where tax dollars are coming from, who's responsible for what. I think it's very important for everybody to know that the city of Hollister doesn't just contribute $15,000 a year to the San Benito County Free Library. It just doesn't show up on anybody's paper. It gets taken from us right at the very beginning upon property tax collection. So I just wanted to say that real quick. And I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you. We'll go to item E1.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I'm Renee Perales, Projects Coordinator with the Development Services Department for the City of Hollister. The Community Development and Economic Development allocations of the State Community Development Block Grant, which I'm going to refer to as CDBG, publishes a combined Notice of Funding Availability, and I'm going to refer to that as NOFA, each program year. On September 1st, the Notice of Funding Availability was released. Eligible cities and counties may submit applications for the CDBG funds under the current NOFA. The city may apply for 2 eligible activities plus a planning activity. Applications will be due to the Department of Housing and Community Development on December 1st, 2017, and is anticipated to be awarded in June of 2018. Eligible activities under the above allocations in the NOFA consist of several different items, and I think we're going to... Do you have the other one, Christine? That's fine. We can just use that one. So we can apply for a combined total of $5 million, which is up from the previous years, from $2 million. We can apply for, let's see, housing or economic development for a maximum of $500,000, microenterprise, housing program activities, which can be either home ownership assistance or housing rehab for a combined total of $1 million. Multi-family activities, public service activities, which we've done in the past, and for a maximum of $500,000. And two of those activities, or two public services, actually equal one activity. Public improvement activities, public facility activities, planning and technical assistance, and there's two other ones, but we're not eligible for those. Eligible activities paid for with state CDBG funds must meet one or more of the three national objectives listed in the CDBG federal statutes as follows. It must meet the benefit to low-income households or persons, elimination of slum and blight, or meeting urgent community development need. The purpose of the public hearing is to give citizens an opportunity to make their comments known regarding what types of eligible activities the City of Hollister should apply for under the state CDBG program. A separate public hearing will be held in the future to discuss and approve the application prior to submitting to the state. Staff recommends opening the public hearing, hearing testimony, and receive comments in regard to possible applications for the state CDBG grant, and close the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions from council? Councilmember Luna?
Yes, Renee, you mentioned there was two activities you would not be applying for.
Yes.
What are those?
It's Colonia and Native American eligible activities. And Colonia is the only places that are eligible are rural Mexican border areas. So we don't qualify for that. And the Native American eligible activities we don't qualify for because we don't have any, there's no tribes here.
Okay.
Okay. Councilman Gilio?
Yeah, I have a question. We hear oftentimes one of the things that the state requires that we have is a certified housing element. Yes. And a lot of the times what is threatened if we don't have a certified housing element is that we will not receive our community development block grant funds. And perhaps the city manager or Renee, if you can comment on that, I'd like to see how that ties in, and if this is potentially $5 million that may be at risk for projects that we can do if we don't have that certified housing element.
That's absolutely the case. I mean, part of the first step of making your application is you have to have a state certified housing element. And as kind of as the discussion goes, when we're talking about a growth management program or ordinance, a lot of times when cities implement those, what happens is you become basically out of compliance with your housing element, which then can technically maybe remove a housing element certification. So we need to make sure that when we're going through these different processes that for every action there's a reaction, and we just want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in jeopardy, because this is a pretty significant NOFA that the state's come out with this year, and we want to take as much advantage of it as we possibly can. So.
Thank you.
To expand on that, though, that is about the affordable housing aspect of the housing.
Generally, you are absolutely correct.
Yes. Correct. So that's what they're concerned about, is making sure we're planning for affordable housing. Are there any other questions? Councilmember Friend, do you have a question? Okay, at this time we'll open it to public hearing. Are there any speakers?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Pauline Valdivia.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak for a few minutes. I just want to, Pauline Valdivia, 700 C Street here in Hollister. Anyway, I just want to say that I support the public services, applying for the public services, from the CDBG grant money. And also I'm here on behalf of Jóvenes de Antaño Senior Services. We were fortunate last round to be able to receive some funding for our Meals on Wheels program, and that's where we're at right now. We desperately need to be part of that again. We have over 50 people on the waiting list, so I really hope that you will consider that. I know there's a lot of need in the community, considering children, housing, etc. The elderly is I see it as a forgotten population in our community. So I just urge you to consider JDA services to be able to be one of the applicants to apply for the public services. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oops, lost my cane.
Holly McWhinney.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members and staff. I am here to basically, I've been here for 22 years and I've been seeing us kind of go around in circles. And I would like to see us do some substantial affordable housing for the current and for the near future. I've talked to a lot of people in the last, let's say, 6 months, done a lot of research on my own. I've talked to people in the Santa Clara area. I've talked to someone that works with the mayor in Santa Clara, in San Jose. I've talked to people in the Richmond area. I've talked to Alameda County individuals that are in government in Contra Costa County. So I've kind of done my own research because that's just the heart of what I do. And I'd like to see some of this CDBG money go towards affordable housing for now and something into the future. And the other piece being micro businesses, an incubator type business that they currently have in Richmond where they're actually fostering new businesses. We get a lot of people that move here from Santa Clara. I'm actually from San Mateo County originally. So people are moving this way, but we have housing, but we don't have the jobs. I've seen us get the impact fees, but as I've talked to different individuals in government, impact fees are not getting it. It's not cutting it. So we're seeing a lot of Melrose fees tacked on to home buying, and the homeowner is paying for that, not the developer. So like I said, I'm not bringing you a problem. I'm actually bringing you a solution because, like I said, I've done the homework, and all of these counties have something that's working. So I'd love to have a further conversation on how we can use that money and actually move San Benito County and the city of Hollister forward. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, at this time we're going to close public hearing. So are you in need of a motion on this? We have the direction.
Yeah. It's just part of the formalities that we have to go through. We have to conduct a public hearing.
Thank you very much. We'll move to item F1.
Mr. Chambliss isn't here this evening, so I'll do this one real quick. We're actually asking for authorization to release a request for qualifications for the design of the McCarthy Park. As you know, we have an underutilized park located adjacent to the San Andreas High School. And this is the first step in getting actual drawings, plans, and specs ready to go out to bid so we can continue that. As you know, we received a fairly large grant for the improvements over there. We've had some community involvement, some initial drawings have been drafted, so to speak. So I think we're starting from a fairly good spot. So we'll, with this resolution, allow us to begin the first step.
Okay. Councilmember Gilio.
Number one, I wanted to say thank you for all the folks that came out to all the Parks Master Plan updates. We're still in the process of updating our Parks Master Plan. We have an opportunity for folks to apply for a Parks and Recreation Commissioner, and I've been out there trying to drum up support, and I think we might have a few people that are interested. I would just encourage folks to know that this is one of the projects as a Park and Rec Commissioner, and also as just a regular community member, if you want to provide input, that you have a significant chance to provide input and also shape the design of a great new park that has over $600,000 worth of grant dollars ready to go. So if you are considering or want to get involved in Parks and Rec, please reach out, and I believe, Christine, you can handle that, right? If somebody wants to contact you for an application, Christine Black at the City of Hollister. Thank you.
Hey, Councilmember Friend.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands we have had 5 community meetings about this park and the design of this park. We've had one since we got the grant where we had 2 versions of what we heard from the county, from the citizens. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago at the Vets Hall, and we got further input from everybody that lives close to the park and some other people that were just in the city and interested about what they wanted in the park. So I think now's the time to move on this so that we can get those ideas into that designing, and I think it's going to be really something when it's done.
Okay, any other questions from council? Councilmember Luna?
I just want to add that this is something that is long overdue for this type of park. And I just wanted to ask, what is the time frame on this for the completion of all this work?
Well, we'll close the RFQ, I think, in October. October 20th, we'll make the selection. We'll bring back the professional services contract to you probably first meeting in November. And then the design and construction drawings go from there. Then we have to come back to you once again for the bid and specs approval of the park. And then you get to award it. So there'll be three more council actions for this particular item, probably going until probably early next year sometime.
So I'm just hoping that by the summer, next summer?
Next summer, under construction?
Under construction?
Let's hope, yeah.
Not completion. Okay. Just wanted to know the time frame.
I can guarantee you that McCarthy Park will still be there next summer.
I'm sure it will. It's been there a long time. Thank you.
Do we have any speaker cards?
No, Mr. Mayor?
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Move on to item F2.
Good evening. This item was continued from the August 21st meeting with direction to review and compare an alternative to complete replacement of fixtures out at the domestic treatment plant. It was identified that the project can be completed without fixture swap-outs or retrofit kits. This could be done by replacing the T8 fluorescent bulbs with LED fluorescent-style bulbs in existing fixtures at a reduced cost. Stephen Campbell from AMBAG is here, and in a moment I'll let him speak to the council and provide you with a clearer explanation of this matter to City Council. Before I do that, I wanted to provide the City Council with a better understanding of the lighting situation at the reclamation plant. During a recent visit out there, it was observed that several of the lights within the building had failed. I was advised by Jim Heitzman of Veolia Water that outside of the building, all of the lights around the process tanks had failed. To give the council an idea of what I mean by the process tanks, these are large vats where sewer flows in. They're really deep. The light poles around the process tanks appear to be 14 to 15 feet high. They're fixed in place, and they cannot be lowered because there's no swivel arms on the bottom of them. And in talking to Jim Heitzman, they would have to bring in a contractor with special equipment to change those light bulbs out because Veolia Water will not allow their employees to work on those the lights because of potential hazards. With that, I'm going to let Steve Campbell talk to you guys about the retrofit kits.
Mayor, Council. My name is Steve Campbell, Associate Program Manager at the Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments. And the table that we provided to Council and the Mayor has two options. One is the TLED, which stands for tubular LED, and it's just basically taking these types of lamps here and replacing it with the same exact size. It's just an LED instead of a fluorescent. And then the retrofit kit, what we mean by that is it's actually taking out the lamps and it's replacing them with LED strip kits. It's basically more of an integrated kit and it lasts a lot longer. So you can see the reason why we typically always recommend a retrofit kit over a TLED is simply because it saves more energy for longer. So the interior life is 88,000 hours compared to 50,000 hours for the TLEDs.
Okay, well, I guess since I was the one that went out to go take a look at the facility, and I'm very knowledgeable about this whole industry, and I want to thank you, Danny, for rearranging the time so many different days for me to attend that meeting.
Yes.
What I did find there right away was pretty clear. Most of those fixtures are in very good shape. There's just a few burnt out bulbs. The idea here with the technology today is, if we were talking about this 5 years ago, it was replacing the whole fixture. Now you can simply change out the T8, the lamp, the fluorescent lamp, into an LED lamp. The guys there at the facility are capable of doing that. The issue of the lights around the treatment area do require some safety gear to make sure it's done safely, but it really is just a matter of changing out bulbs there that have been burnt out over the years and never been replaced. So the fix there is relatively easy to do, and it can be done relatively inexpensively compared to the original prices. I think the numbers, I haven't had time to go through the numbers, but I could see that entire project being done for under $20,000 to get that completed. So I think it's a much wiser way to do it than to use the 50 or I forgot what the number was previous we were talking about. But it's a very simple fix. It's just a matter of supplying the staff out there the LED bulbs and changing them out. A few of the fixtures are going to go bad, as we all know, but those go bad with the LED fixtures also. And I've seen that time and time again where we install a LED fixture and a year or two later it's gone bad. So that's the reality of these fixtures. So I think the better fix is to change out the lamps.
Okay, the staff recommendation for the facility, because the lighting and the fixtures have pretty much ran their life expectancy, staff recommends that the council consider the replacement project. This would provide for better efficient lighting that is expected to last for many more years. And because of the amount of hours for these high efficiency lighting, you'd get more bang for your buck over time. But the decision is up to council on which way they want to go.
Is there any questions from council?
I've done work on this street light replacements and stuff, and this is an awful lot of money for that. I agree with the mayor. I think I wouldn't mind bidding on this for half that money, because I think that, I mean, this seems like it's an awful lot of money just for those lights.
Yeah. One thing to consider, I would hope the council consider, and Mr. Mayor, you saw it also, there are several light poles out there, those tall light poles that are around the process tanks, that will require a contractor with special equipment to come in. And every time you have a ballast that goes out, you're going to pay a price to bring a contractor with special equipment in there to change it out. So do you roll the dice and allow for, let's swap it out in piecemeal, or do you take the chance to put in all new higher efficiency equipment?
If I can answer that real quick, Mr. Clower, I know you have a question there. I specifically looked at that area. The issue there is all those lamps are burnt out because they've never been changed. Hiring a contractor that has the safety gear to do it, it's not a big deal. And that person can be found locally or from somewhere else if you want. But it's not a big deal. It literally is putting on some safety harness, making sure your gear is tied down, replacing that lamp, and it's going to last probably for another 10 years. There might be a ballast that goes out now and then. It's the same call. It's a simple call. The problem now is that all of those lamps are burnt out. So it's just going to take a contractor probably a day, 2 at the max, to change those bulbs out. So it's a little tough to come up with the $50,000, $60,000 to just do something so simple. Councilmember Clower?
I don't really know anything about this topic, so I'm operating at a severe disadvantage. My concern is the safety aspect today or tonight. If somebody's walking around out there, how quickly can we get those fixed? Whether we do it through AMBAG or we do our own, can we just get a contractor? Do we have to go out to bid for that? I don't know how much it would cost. I don't know the threshold on it, but it seems like if they're all out, that probably should have been taken care of a long time ago. Yeah. And now we're all aware that if something goes wrong, we all know that the conditions existed. So I'd like to get that taken care of, whether we do this or some other option.
I could say the that type of work would be well under maybe $3,000, especially if we're supplying the lamps. $3,000, I would see the highest cost on that to have a contractor. And yes, the contractor could be called out relatively quickly to get that done. It's not, as I said, it's not a complicated job. It really is tying off for safety, replacing the lamp, and going from there. Any other questions from council? Do we have any speaker cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Danny. Is there a motion? Okay. This item dies for lack of a motion. Thank you very much. Go to F3.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. Again, I'm Renee Perales, Projects Coordinator in the Development Services Department. Tonight we have an item before you in which we are asking City Council to approve a resolution to direct staff to initiate an amendment to allow limited additional uses in the Public Facilities Institutional Zoning District with a conditional use permit. The City of Hollister has 4 buildings in the Public Facilities Institutional Zoning District at 420 Hill Street that in the past few years were vacated and staff was relocated to 5th Street, closer to City Hall, to consolidate government services. Section 3.06.060 of the Hollister Municipal Code allows the lease of any property owned by the city for any period of time authorized by law, provided that the City Council approves a resolution determining that the property will not be necessary for municipal purposes during the term of the lease or any extension of the lease. The city has not identified any future uses for the buildings on Park Hill to date. Buildings A, B, C, and D could deteriorate without ongoing maintenance and could be subject to further vandalism. There may be a potential to lease these buildings for a small-scale specialty commercial and manufacturing uses associated with specialized education and training and an event center, but the uses are not allowed in the Public Facility Institutional Zoning District. Staff is recommending that the City Council approve the resolution 2017-222, initiating an amendment to the Public Facility Institutional Zoning District. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any questions from council? No. Councilmember Friend?
If we approve this, and let's say a year from now we don't have any renters that want those buildings, is the city going to ask the budget to knock those buildings down or redo them?
I have no idea. I mean, because there's a lot of other things that are going on up there with the asbestos and lead-based paint and some of the other things. I mean, it will cost an absolute fortune, I think, to demo. I mean, we're running into that same sort of situation like out at the airport. I don't have a good answer to that.
My question to go along with that is, can we actually lease them if we have those issues right now with the asbestos and lead?
Well, you let your city employees in there for 20 years.
That's a different story.
It's not like you didn't know it then.
I didn't know it then, but I saw problems out there.
No.
But in all seriousness, can somebody occupy the building and be safe right now?
There are some things that they would probably want to do, yes, but you can occupy them and still be safe, yeah. Because the asbestos is in the floor tile, so there's ways to abate that without removal. You can cover them. There's various things, and obviously the building's been painted several times. I was just coming at it from the perspective of doing demo, because then as soon as that stuff becomes airborne, it's a completely different substance to deal with. So
now, how would we control the use as far as the noise? There's several residences in that area, so.
Well, any lease or any potential tenant or any of that would have to obviously come to you folks. So you'll always know what sort of business types are going in there. Plus, the operator, you could have conditions on hours of operation to mitigate anything around the businesses or the residents that are currently up there, and even the park for that matter. So.
Okay, Councilmember Luna.
Yeah, I was by there the other day, and it seems like everybody's dropping up mattresses and everything else on the side of the building. Is there anything that can be done about that, where a fence could be put up around it?
You like behind my old or building A? Yeah, I mean, that happened when we were even up there. So, I mean, it's a pretty normal occurrence up there. We have our park guys, though, that are there every morning and every evening. Recology's been always pretty good about picking up the big stuff when it gets dropped off. Yeah, we get that a lot up there.
There was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot, so should be removed.
Yeah. But I think also having people up there deters that to some extent as well. So.
Okay, any other questions? Do we have any speaker cards?
Marty Richmond?
Marty Richmond from Hollister. Good evening again. If I was the emperor, I certainly would not do this. First of all, yes, right now you say, well, we have the asbestos contained, and then you get a quake, and all of a sudden your asbestos is not contained because the building falls down, and now you've got to clean up at the worst possible condition. Also, I am really discouraged to hear that people are using it for a dump. There's a $1,000 fine for dumping, and we have a landfill here. There's a reason for it. People want to dump their old tires and mattresses any place. I think this is a bad idea all around. I think there's a lot of safety issues. This has material issues. I think we ought to plan on taking it down because things only get worse. Look what's happened to the old hospital. When you abandon a place, assuming you're not going to get them all leased out right away, the first thing that happens is people who want to do stuff find an indoor area to do it. And so when the old hospital is available, it had asbestos, and the teenagers would go up there and go in there, start fires, and so on and so forth. I think you're just asking for trouble. It isn't as if we have a critical shortage of really good technology areas to work in if you want to go down to Technology Parkway or a lot of other places where the 4 rent signs and 2 let signs dominate the neighborhood, okay, and that we have regular operational buildings with church names on them because, or we have a whole bunch rented to the public because it's rented to the county. So I think this ought to be the worst of all ideas. I think you ought to make it into a park if you want it to be a park and start planning on cleaning it up rather than trying to kind of suffer through the potential that you're going to get. Now, potential is really important. I remember a little speech I gave to the city manager when you were doing the old Leatherback site, and I said, watch out for the potential hazardous material underneath the ground, and that potential costs us several $1 million. It's not, the upside gain is not worth the downside risk. I think you ought to close it up and start planning on pulling it down. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
There are no more?
No more.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion?
I have a question.
Councilmember Clower has a question.
So if we take this action, we're not actually doing anything physical, right? It's just allowing another possible use. So we're not committing any money. We're not taking any action toward retrofitting or renovating the buildings.
All you're doing right now is authorizing staff to begin developing an amendment to your existing code. You haven't even adopted your code at this point. So then the further your question is, you're not doing anything with that particular action, especially as it relates to actual building.
Okay, thank you.
Or use.
I have a comment, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Gulio.
I think it's important that we explore this. There's no harm in exploring it. Once you lock them down, and Marty, I understand your concerns as well and the concerns that were brought up about asbestos, but once you lock them up, knock them down, so to speak, there's no rebuilding them, right? So why not explore this, and if there's some real potential there, and if there are hazards, then there are hazards. We got to deal with it. But this is just the first step in exploring what can possibly be done with those buildings, and for that reason, I support this. And I'll make a motion if there's no other comments, Mr. Mayor.
Is there any other comments from council? You have a motion?
I make a motion for 2017-222 to approve as written.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. We'll go to item F4.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Resolution 2017-223 would approve a hotel incentive program. This item was before you on August 21st. You reviewed a draft program, and there was direction for 2 changes to the program. One was to increase the incentive percentage for quality service hotels to 70% and the cap to $2 million. And the second change was to add the American Automobile Association lodging requirements and diamond rating guidelines as an exhibit to the hotel incentive program. We're recommending that you approve the resolution 2017-223 with the incorporated changes. Was also brought up at the meeting on August 21st that there should be some consideration in the program for incentives for some of our existing hotel facilities for requirements for health and safety, American with Disabilities Act, to retrofit the existing hotels. Staff's part of the program has an annual review, and we're recommending that you direct staff by motion to explore that option when we bring it back to you next year as part of the annual review. Is there any questions?
Any questions from council? No questions? Any speaker cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Clower?
Yeah, as I stated at the last meeting, I'm against these changes. I think that we need to provide some sort of incentive to get hotels to be built. I think we did do that, and I think a hotel was built. I think the simplest way for me to put it is, as a council, we decided about an hour ago that we weren't comfortable giving $2,500 to the neediest kids in Hollister. And I don't think that we necessarily need to give another $1 million to somebody who's going to build a hotel. I'm comfortable with the $1 million over 10 years at 50%. I think half is enough. Once you go to 70%, they're getting more than we are for something that the city deserves. There is a tax there that's being paid by all of the existing hotels. I don't think that somebody who builds a hotel should get more than half of that. So I'm all for the incentive program, just not with the adjustments that have been made.
Okay, Councilmember Giller.
So since the last meeting, I had the opportunity to speak with some industry experts and also folks that are bringing other businesses as well to town. And in effort to save everybody's time, exactly what Carson Clower, Councilmember Clower, is saying is what's been recommended, and it seems like 70% is too generous. And with the 50% $1 million cap over 10 years, and granted, if they don't use that as it's written now, you come back after 10 years, and there's still the opportunity to use 5.33%, and that would go to, God forbid we're all still on the council, but if we were all still on the council, it would go back to. It would go to the council at the time to make that decision. So I think making a decision 20 years, $2 million over 10 years is way too much money, and I support 50%, $1 million. And like Carson said, we brought one hotel to town already, and they're thankful for that. Thank you.
The point I'd like to remind everyone is that 100% of zero is zero. This is not dollars we're paying. These are dollars that a new hotel would pay on their taxes to make this thing work. All we're doing is incentivizing those taxes that they would be bringing in if they were to build a facility to help pay to get them started. This is not tax dollars coming from the general fund or from the city. This is tax dollars coming from the hotel itself to help incentivize to get more rooms built. The new hotel, the turning point was the help we gave with this type of a program. I think we can agree, as city manager said, not hotels but beds. We do still need more hotel beds in the city, and we need to really kick that into gear if we're ever going to start bringing business here and start bringing tourism here. Without those that piece, we're going to be behind in what we're trying to accomplish in this community. It's not that this is too generous, it's an incentive. I've had conversations with some people in the hotel industry, and it makes them look at this as an opportunity to think about making that investment. These hotels are not cheap. These are $10 to $15 million hotels. It's very difficult to find funding from banks without a little help in different areas. So I think this gives us the opportunity to bring a few more hotels into our community. Councilmember Luna?
Yeah, during the last meeting, Mary, I know we went into a discussion on the importance of having more hotels in Hollister, and only because the attraction is there now, because not only because of Pinnacle National Monument, but because of the events that are happening in Hollister. And being that so many people are moving into the city, and there's a real interest in actually having more people visit them, and therefore the hotels are needed. And if it's something that we need to think about now to invest for the future, I really feel that this is going in the right direction. And we had a long discussion last time, and the discussion was that we needed, if we are going to become that community that is going to be attracting people to this community more so, then we need somewhere, we need rooms, lodging for the people. And so, I'm for this.
Okay.
I kind of agree with what Mickey's saying. I hear what Carson's saying about the dollars, but this is their dollars, not ours. This is, it's hard to believe that somebody's going to build a $20 million motel, that having this 10-year or $2 million incentive program is going to be the piece that puts them over the hump, and they'll do it, but it helps. So I think we need to do this because we need the income, and they will pay the tax on top. Like you say, if they gave us 50% or 70% or 30% of what there is, that's more than we're getting now for nothing. So that would absolutely be a revenue generator. So I think it's a good idea to do this.
Okay. Councilmember Flower?
TOT goes into the general fund?
Yes.
Okay, so it's the same as any other dollar. It's the same as a sales tax dollar. It's the same as a property tax dollar. It's a tax dollar. So I understand the incentive, but there's no difference between me going to Target, let's incentivize another Target. Maybe that's not quite as important as incentivizing the beds, but it's the same. It's all taxes. So it's not a different type of dollar that we use for something else. $1 million over 10 years at one hotel could fund our tourism program that we do with the chamber for the entire 10 years. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to them, but it's a lot of money to us too. And I don't think I need to go too much further into it, but it's the same as any other dollar that we have.
Okay, Councilmember Gillio?
Yeah, I think it's important to note, too, that the hotels aren't paying the TOT tax. Our tourists are. The people that come and stay in our hotel pay the tax. The hotel holds on to it, transfers it over to the city. That's where it comes from. So, and believe me, I understand. I actually agree with the mayor. I agree with Ray, and I agree with Mickey that we want to encourage these folks to come here. But what I'm saying is that the 50%, $1 million, is an encouragement, a very good encouragement. And Mr. Mayor, you mentioned it actually, that was what got the hotel that we saw built out there on Gateway to actually come here. So we're doing that, and we're doing a good job with that. And I don't think you need to increase that. We can use those dollars in so many other ways that I think it's more important to do that. And we're still encouraging hotels to come here. It's just we're not giving away our entire city budget or bank to do that. We can use those dollars for many other things. Thank you.
Just for the sake of clarity again, I want to make sure we're clear on this. Yes, TOT dollars are the tax that we pay when we do stay in a hotel, different rates throughout different communities. It's an additional tax that does come into the city, but the tax does not come into the city if there is not a hotel. These are TOT dollars coming in. It incentivizes the developer to build them. Again, it's 100% of zero is still zero. This is not dollars coming out of our budget. These are dollars coming out of those taxes that were collected from that new hotel for that TOT. That's the difference. It's very important. I don't want to confuse the public thinking it's tax dollars coming out of our budget. Those dollars will never come into the budget without the hotels. We do have a national park in our backyard. We do have hotels that are quite busy now in our community. There is a need for additional hotel beds. And if we're going to bring business here, we're going to bring tourism here, there has to be some more additional beds. So I appreciate all the work you've done in this. I know it's confusing and hard for you. You present one and we go a little back and forth, but you've done a great job on this.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for the city manager. Has the new hotel already signed a deal, and what rate did they come in at, and what rate do we use to encourage them to come in at?
Well, what we're doing is we're setting up we're formalizing the program, and so the next step is to finalize the agreement. That'll come back to you at a public hearing based on this.
What amount did we use to entice them? Somebody said. I think Mr. Mayor said that
it was $1 million.
At 50%?
With 15 years at 50%.
15 years.
And when we brought the program to you, we recommended, from looking at other communities, there was 2 tiers we were recommending. This one was in the Quality Service Hotel, which would be the equivalent of a AAA 3-diamond.
Okay.
And then there was the other, the higher quality, and that would have been a hotel with more of a conference facility where you could have a conference or weddings and things such as that.
Okay.
And that was the recommendation for $2 million and 70%.
Councilmember Clark.
Mary, do we have anything in writing that ties them to the details that we originally proposed?
We have resolutions from the City Council directing staff to do what we're doing.
I guess what I'm asking, and this is what I brought up last time, is there anything that's going to stop them from showing up at City Hall at 8 a.m. tomorrow and ask for this deal that seems like it's going to be approved? Okay, so what's our annual TOT?
140.
140. Okay, so we're talking about, if this is let's just, for the sake of entertainment, this is $1 million decision. And it's 6.5 years worth of TOT that we have now. So 6.5 years of TOT kind of, at least in my eyes, ride on this decision that we're going to make. Because I don't know how we're going to be able to turn to Fairfield and say, yeah, you know what, we're not going to give you this deal. This is for the next group that comes in. And it's just going to be a real fun time to deal with that. I didn't want to go down this path, but I think that this decision has a lot more ramification on now dollars than I'm capable to explain.
Just for clarity, again, I think the conversation we had was the deal was never done with the other hotel. It wasn't finalized. And I think we did talk about allowing them to participate with these numbers to make it fair. Because I agree it would not be fair to them to...
And an agreement has not been executed.
Right, it's not been executed.
We're putting this program...
And this would be the agreement.
So I'm against this $1 million more than I was 3 minutes ago.
Okay. Still $1 million left on the table. Okay. Do we have any speaker cards?
Julie Vieira.
Mayor and Council, Julie Vieira, CEO of the San Benito County Chamber of Commerce. I just want to remind you guys that we kept a 12-month total of how much business we sent in hotel rooms to Gilroy. We have people call the chamber all the time and ask for rooms. They can't find anything. I sent $750,000 in a 12-month period to Gilroy Hilton. So I just want you to keep that in mind. And also we need to work on our TOT because it's the lowest in the area. I just got back from Napa area, and there's like double what ours is. So we do need to work on that. And the chamber does, to improve the hotels we have, we do receive complaints about the hotels we have in the area. And if we can incentivize some of the hotels we have currently to clean up and improve, I think that would be greatly appreciated, and we would have more people being able to stay at them. So I just want you to remind you that in 12 months we sent $750,000 to Gilroy, and that's just who called us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comment?
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if it pleases the council, maybe I can make one ditch effort to sort of come to a compromise that I think everybody might be able to get behind. I hope. What if we do this? If we manage the program similar to what we kind of promised the Fairfield when we did their recruitment and got them to come here, we have something that we have on the shelf that we can offer people that may want to build a hotel. As you know, these deals don't usually die overnight or live overnight. So I can promise this, is that if we run into a situation where a hotel operator comes to us or a developer comes to us and says, hey, I just can't make it work at $1 million, I need $2 million, I can assure you all that I will be at your next meeting asking you for $2 million. We're not going to let those opportunities go by, just like we didn't let the Fairfield by Marriott go by. I mean, it took a long time to get that deal finally done, and I think the staff that's here will absolutely come to you and revise or ask or amend or come to any sorts of other agreements that may be necessary to get somebody to come. And every operator runs their things a little bit differently too. I mean, it may not always just be about a reimbursement of a TOT. It could be some other sort of incentive that the city may want to or has the ability to put forth. So I understand Councilman Clower's situation. I understand that we don't ever want to turn away anybody. We want to make it look as attractive as possible. But I think having something on the shelf gets you in the door. $1 million isn't anything to sneeze at, but at the same time, if that's not enough, we can make it more. I mean, that's always going to be your decision. So,
I think the issue there is, as you pointed out, it took a long time to make this deal happen. Mm-hmm. If we're going to be doing these things, we need to aggressively go out and promote and find these property owners that want to invest. And I think this is part of that strategy. Let's not just okay this, but let's go out and find those developers that want to do these deals and bring those hotels here. That's the incentive. Mm-hmm. If the idea is come over and talk to us and we'll see if we can work something a little better later, that's really not going to help us get there. Let's understand if we want to do this and we want new or additional rooms, let's put a program together as we have here. Let's aggressively go out, either advertise it in the trade magazines that these owners look at or speak to some of these property owners in different areas now. And this is happening again. It's not a unique idea here. This is, as was pointed out, taken from different communities that are doing this. There's a reason some communities have quite a few hotels, and communities like ours don't have enough hotels. So we need to be aggressive on this. Again, if we're going to change the business climate here or additional, hopefully, jobs and tourism here, we're going to need those hotels. And we just cannot keep waiting and hoping somebody's going to come out and ask us for a little more help. We need to be looking for a way to entice them and bring them here and show them there's great potential here. Let's just get moving on it. All right. Is there any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
So moved.
The motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Nope.
Motion carries 3-2. Or is it? Okay, 4-1. Thank you very much. You guys want to take a 5-minute break?
Yes, please.
Let's take a 5-minute break, everyone. How's life going? All right, everyone, we're going to resume the meeting at this time. We'll move forward to item F5.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. The resolution that you have before you tonight does a couple of things. It authorizes staff to begin preparing job descriptions and doing the recruitment for those positions that are related to the cannabis industry. And then also there's a separate maintenance worker 2 positions for the city storm drain. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and I'll just tackle the storm drain one first. It's relatively simple. As you are aware, we have a management plan that's been adopted by the City Council and the Regional Water Quality Control Board. We actually went out and we were seeking independent contractors to potentially provide this service for us. What we encountered was essentially most of the folks that would do that for us required us to basically provide the equipment, and that just didn't seem quite right for us to have outside contractors using the VATCONs and whatnot by the city, or the city's VATCONs to do this work. So what you have before you is basically 2 maintenance worker 2 positions that will basically do full-time duty would be maintaining and doing the necessary videotaping, et cetera, of our storm drain system, the entire system. So that's the first part, or the last part. The first part would be getting the folks together for the actual cannabis industry or the businesses. So far, what staff is recommending is that we have basically a cannabis affairs manager, we have a police lieutenant and a police officer, and I know Chief Westrick may pull that back a little bit and go to, did you say a sergeant?
Yeah, if it pleases the council, I think we can get away with a sergeant.
Okay. So we would have a police sergeant and a police officer. We would have an IT analyst. This person would help mostly out at PD. As you know, Paul spends a lot of his time out at PD with the various cameras, but this particular individual would be dealing mostly with the track and trace systems that are going to be in place, hopefully at the state level. I know that there's been some difficulties in Colorado with their track and trace systems. So as that develops, I think we need somebody that'll be able to navigate, folks, operators, scanning systems or any of the other computer systems that they may have to or they may be using in order to do their either track or trace or seed to sale, whatever the industry is calling it this week. I know it changes on a regular basis. We have one account tech too. That person is actually in the finance department. That they will be taking care of handling all the money. In addition to that, I'd like to be able to have our auditors have some money set aside for our auditors, our financial auditors, to do any sort of forensic auditing that may be required if we run into an issue with potential sales tax, et cetera, that may be occurring that's not being documented appropriately. And then the deputy fire marshal would be a person very similar to Captain Bedolla or Fire Marshal Bedolla. They're likely to be the ones that spend most of the time in the facilities, especially those manufacturing facilities that are using volatile extraction methods, making sure that whatever agreement we come to with the amount of gas that they have on site, et cetera, and making sure that they're doing things appropriately and as safe as possible. So with that said, I think that's kind of our initial sort of startup. That costs about $824,000. That's probably on the high side of everything. I'm not so sure that it would actually end up being that. But what I will say is that those costs are offset by the at least right now we did some checking. The revenue that you'll be generating just from cultivation alone that the council has already approved is about $1.161 million. That doesn't count any of the manufacturing sales and the dispensary sales. So at least initially, we feel like this is a good start. It'll be able to give us the manpower necessary to get this off the ground. And then I think that as the industry grows and there's more square footage developed in the community, we can evaluate that and see if we need to add anybody, but at least initially we feel pretty comfortable with what we're looking at. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Again, a lot of this in the law enforcement area, I think, is specifically, and even in the fire marshal's realm, one of the things that I'd like everybody to focus on more, it's not necessarily being regulatory on the folks that are doing this legally and with permission in the city of Hollister. It's trying to track down the people that are doing it illegally. And in order for that business to be successful in this community, I think we need to make sure that it doesn't get undercut by illegal operations. So when we talk about law enforcement isn't necessarily to go out to the buildings that we've approved and make sure everybody's doing the right thing. Law enforcement is making sure that we don't have people growing it in the houses, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions from council? Councilmember Luna.
Just clarification on the police lieutenant. Would that be the sergeant instead of lieutenant?
Yes, I'll trade them out.
What about code enforcement?
The code enforcement is actually being handled right now mostly through the fire marshal's position. Again, I think that he will likely, or that person, I shouldn't say he, that person will likely spend most of their time doing the code enforcement type of infractions as well. Again, we want to make sure that things are, from a health and safety perspective, they're going to be the ones that are visiting the building probably more so than anybody else.
And there's only one account tech?
Yeah, just one account tech. We think that we can get by with that. And like I said, I would like to be able to have maybe an augmented professional services agreement with, was it Brett? Manuriti and Nelson is our auditors. And again, just to make sure that they're available to us if we run into an issue, and we think we do. That we also were going to be looking at contracting with them also to do the TOT for us as well, because that's a pretty easy. There have been many communities that don't necessarily collect all their TOT on a regular basis. As Councilman Gillio mentioned earlier, that it's done quarterly, and so it's usually on good faith basis. So.
Okay.
The only item I would point out here is that the fees and the licensing should cover these costs, not the taxes afterwards. So let's make sure that the fee for the licenses cover these costs, so we're not using the other dollars in the future, because there's costs we don't know of yet that we're going to be experiencing. But as San Jose did it, as they explained to me, they made sure the fees and their licensing covered all these costs up front. So it's a very important part that they kept pointing out in numerous discussions.
And I apologize because I'm not as familiar with it. When you say fees and licensing, I mean part of the regulatory permit is an annual permit that the council provides a particular operator or a regulatory agreement. And I was under the assumption that in the ordinance it doesn't talk about a fee for that. There's an application fee and a processing fee, and then there's the fee per square foot, and then there's the tax on the sales. There isn't another magical fee that's in there that covers those costs. So, but like I said, I think that what you're going to find in just like I said, your cultivation and those types of fees, that's what actually helps pay for the costs associated with the industry. I want you also to be, and I didn't check with council before I'm going to say this, and he can stop me if I'm wrong. But again, another part of providing this service is that you can't usually just charge businesses a fee for and not provide service. We're not necessarily set up like that. So we need to have some justification for the fees that we are charging.
And that is the license fee. And that's, again, this is what San Jose made very clear about what they were doing out there, is they had a fee, a license fee, then they had the taxes. They made it very clear, make sure you're covering your costs, upfront costs with that license fee. I think the new fee, some of the experts here could tell us here, I think in some of the industry is over $100,000 just for the license. I think last year or the year before when we had those discussions, there were upwards of $60,000 for the license fee. So I think that's something, if it got missed in that ordinance.
Yeah, we don't have, unless Maria can tell me I'm wrong, we don't have a $60,000 annual fee for licensing.
Right. So, but do we even have a license fee? So I think what I would say, we need to step back and address that issue. We should not be looking at this as taxes will cover those costs. The license fee should cover all these costs up front.
Well,
I thought we did that when we tacked on the square footage fee. I thought that was
yeah. See, I mean that's what would normally make sense is you have a square footage fee and you have a tax on the goods that are being sold either at the manufacturing level or the dispensary level. I was never aware that the council intended to have an additional annual fee of X on top of that.
Right. Well, I did make that clear to the attorney we were using at the time. I think if a phone call to San Jose can help explain that process, and they did make it very clear to us on those items. And we do need to step back and take a look at this, if that is the case.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Giglio.
I think it's important to note that we need these positions. The council has already approved several of the different categories for cannabis business in our community, and I think we should move forward with these. And you know, what would be very important to tie these to when you're hiring these folks is to let them know that these dollars that are here for your job specifically that we are hiring you for, and it could even be in their employment contract, if these dollars dry up, there may not be a position for you. So it needs to be important that that's there. I spoke to the chief extensively about this, and you cannot get behind the 8 ball on this. You need to be out in front of this. And the $1.161 million that the council, has already authorized in grow, manufacture, more than covers this. And that doesn't even get into any other approvals and also the sales tax and all the other fees and licenses that go along with this. So I'm comfortable in moving forward at some level for a cannabis staff to regulate this industry. We do not want to have this unregulated. I can assure you of that after talking to the chief. Thank you.
Thank you. And I can absolutely agree with you 100% because that is what San Jose said. Make sure you're covered because there's going to be additional costs that you do not foresee coming to your community if you go in this direction. So I just want to see if we can get to that point. I know some have been approved. We have more coming. Any other questions, comments from council? Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Sean Donahue.
Hi. Good evening. Thanks, members of staff. Thanks, City Council. Thanks, Mayor, for bringing this up. I'm excited about this moving forward, about finally getting some staff added to assist to the city staff's utilization of the ordinance that was authorized 6-7 months ago by the City Council. I would point out, though, respectfully, in terms of the mayor's point, bringing up San Jose, the enforcement costs, of course, in San Jose are apples and oranges. In city of San Jose, they had 70 or more unlicensed dispensaries that they were worried about the enforcement costs. I don't believe that there's a dozen unlicensed dispensaries throughout Hollister at this present time. So what exactly is the apples and apples comparison? We're not looking to provide additional funds to regulate above and beyond that which the city of Hollister is talking about licensing. We're only talking about regulating the facilities that are authorized by the city. We're not talking about going above and beyond and enforcing illegitimate activities that pre-exist within the city. So I don't really see the merit of discussing revisiting an ordinance that was finalized 6 or 7 months ago, simply because San Jose 3 or 4 or 5 years ago had a completely different situation, not only in terms of the unlicensed dispensaries as well as in terms of the ordinance drafting.
So is there a license fee currently in San Jose?
There is a license fee.
What's that license fee cost?
I'm not aware. They changed. I believe
100 and
it's over 100,000. Sure.
130, 140 last I heard. Is that
Sure.
correct?
And it's a
Yes.
vertically integrated license procedure that facilitates manufacturing, cultivation, distribution, transportation,
So there's
and
a license
retail
fee.
in a highly urban environment. However, that obviously was done as a reflection of a staff investigation of the employee and staff cost time that could be attributed in a fee in a 218 and 26 compliant manner, which I don't think that's what you're describing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marty Richmond.
Marty Richmond from Hollister. Good evening again. Obviously, we're working with numbers that we don't know exactly what they're going to be because we're shooting at a moving target. You guys are approving stuff as we stand around. I'm concerned because a lot of people in the communities have been here saying, when we get through with all this, you're going to have all this money and you're going to be able to do all these wonderful things with this money. Well, if 80 or 90% of it goes to enforcing the cannabis ordinance, the only wonderful things you'll do with the money is enforce the ordinance. And it's very similar to my argument about impact fees, which are legally only restricted to what it costs, what the impacts are. You don't wind up with any extra dollars. If you do, you wind up in court getting sued, okay? I'm not objecting to hiring people to do the work because I can't stand here on one hand and say we need to control what we do, and on the other hand say don't hire anybody. That would be pretty stupid and look pretty stupid. But I am concerned about we're going to get $800,000 up front before we know it. Now, I understand that everybody says, well, that's a year's worth. Well, you'd be surprised when you start looking at the union rules for firing and hiring, and all of a sudden people are on the books with benefits, and they have to be on with benefits because they deserve it if they're working here. That's part of the contract. We're going to get $800,000 in the hole, and the first thing when we start looking at is, well, how do we make that up? And then it falls apart, and it can, and we'll be $800,000 out. So I suggest you essentially come up at some point with a percentage of what you're going to want to cover, what you think you're going to take in. And it should not be 80%, or 80% a year, whatever it is. That's not a number. I don't think that's a number that comports with what people walked up here and said when they were selling this program. Okay? And I like to hold people to what they say. And you cannot spend the same dollar on a police lieutenant and take that same dollar and spend it on a school because it only gets spent once. So I hope you will do something. And I don't know what the form or shape should be, and it's not, but you need to do something to make sure your costs get covered out of the chute. And if it turns out it's too much, then we'll cut it back. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Carl Saling.
Good evening. My name is Carl Saling. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to speak on this matter. I would like to say to compare Hollister to San Jose as far as the licensing requirements and the fees. Like Sean said, it's apples and oranges. what's the population of San Jose? It's millions, correct? And Hollister is far less than that. So to compare a $100,000 fee to come to Hollister, where the potential business opportunity is far less than San Jose, doesn't equate. Also, keep in mind that you're also in competition with other cities and counties in California. You know, if you start talking about throwing out fees of $100,000 to just do business, Monterey County doesn't have a $100,000 fee, and they figured out that the fees that they're going to charge, I want to say round numbers, $15,000 covers their upfront cost, and they're also going to then make money on the taxes that they impose on the businesses. So if you analyze the few businesses that were approved in August, and you look at their business plans, all of your fees will be covered by the taxes that they're going to pay. It's just going to happen. So if you impose huge application fees or permit fees to these businesses, you're going to drive away lots of potential future tax revenue for Hollister. So there's a way to balance it out, to have a reasonable permit fee and then make it up on the actual revenue that's being generated from these businesses, on the taxes. Thank you.
So just to ask you the question.
Sure.
They have license fees.
Well,
yes, you said $15,000 Monterey County?
Right. Isn't there a permit fee?
That's what we're just hearing. There's no license fee here.
It's like $7,500.
Oh, the application fee.
Yeah. Okay, so they added an extra $7,500 to it.
One time.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, let me point something out. If what we're doing is trying to be in competition with other communities, we've gone down the wrong path already. And that's not what we should be striving for, to be the cheapest location to bring a cannabis industry here.
Hollister's not the cheapest location in California.
And nor do I ever want to be.
I don't want it to be either.
Thank you.
Elias Salinas.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. So there's no license fee that's going to be issued by the state of California, and we have no idea what they're going to charge. There is a permit fee for the city, and that is about almost under $7,500. On top of that, there is a per square foot tax per the development agreement. Then there's a sales tax. What Billy said earlier is that right now it's $1.6 million on the applications that have been permitted by the city. There are more coming in. So we're talking about less than 10, I believe, applications that were allowed back in August. So you still have numerous applications coming in. So based on that, I don't know what the problem is here, what you're saying, comparing apples to oranges. This is not the city of San Jose. City of San Jose only has 16 dispensaries, and they are a larger population. They've gone through this. We're now going through this. I think it's fair. The fee that we're doing is $7,500. Every year, these applicants are going to have to apply to the city. So that's an additional fee that's going to be paid by the city. Every year, the city's going to get that fee. Then on top of that, come January, starting in January the 2nd, these applicants that have been approved are going to apply for a license with the state, and we have no idea. The state may charge $50,000. They might even charge $200,000. We have no idea. Then there's a tax coming down from the state. So you either want to make these companies succeed or you want them to fail. So I think you need to look at exactly what's going on here, how much money. You can't be greedy all of a sudden trying to say, this came to you, $1 million, or what did you say, 0% of $1 million is 0%? This goes right back to you, Mayor. 0% of $1 million. If you're going to be having these people come in here, they're already paying what they need to pay. I don't understand what more you want. They're going to cover the cost. Those application fees that came in at $7,500 under whatever, there were 80 applications, 80 times $7,500. Billy, what was the money that came in? I'm sorry, I can't. So that covers almost the $800,000 that we're talking about to begin with, and there's more applications coming in. So, thank you.
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
No more speakers. Okay. Any other questions from council? Bill, I do have, as I pointed out, the concerns about this license fee. And I don't know what that fee is going to be, but I just heard from every speaker here that, yes, they're paying license fees in different communities, and perhaps the state's going to even charge them $50,000. I don't want to be in arrears. I want to make sure that we're covering all our costs up front. I'm asking that as we move forward, that we look into making sure we come up with the right annual license fee. Okay.
It's separate from the cultivation, separate from the square foot fee, and separate from the sales tax.
A license fee. But this is a different topic. We're handling this right now. I just want to make sure that we're making sure we're covering, or we're speaking to different communities to see what's going on. All right. Okay. Any other questions?
I have a motion, Mr. Mayor.
All right. There's a motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. Thank you.
It's okay.
We'll go
Mr.
to
Mayor,
item.
can I make just a friendly point that we're talking about a police sergeant instead of lieutenant? I was going to make that onto the motion, but it was all verbalized, but we should just codify it.
Police sergeant, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item F6.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item in front of the council this evening will authorize an agreement between the City of Hollister, Sage Renewables, and Zero City for the purposes of conducting a feasibility study on an early buyout of the PPA, or I'm sorry, power purchase agreement. We have a power purchase agreement with, oh my gosh, ClearSpot Solar on our facility out at the domestic treatment plant. This agreement to do the feasibility study is an amount not to exceed $7,500. The study should be done relatively quickly. I do want to point out that we also met with the Hollister School District. Hollister School District has a very similar PPA that they're looking at trying to get out of as well. So hopefully we can work together with Zero City and Sage Renewables to try to package the two products together and maybe get a larger financing deal or a bigger, a larger deal so that it becomes more attractive to some larger investors. So with that said, we have representatives from Zero City here. If you have any questions for them, if not, staff recommends authorizing the city manager to execute that that agreement with them. I'm sorry I'm stuttering. It's getting late.
Okay. Is any questions from council? I would definitely like to ask some questions of those that are here.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Hollister City Council. Martin Carver with Zero City. How may I help?
Martin, thank you very much for coming out today. You've looked at the contract, I take it, already?
I have, although this is a Sage Renewable contract. We've been brought on to do local project management and the like.
No, I'm talking the current PPA contract you've looked at.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, the current PPA. You've seen the...
Yeah.
This is a conversation we've had several years ago about buying ourselves out of this contract because of the outrageous rates that were agreed upon. Am I hearing that you're going to be looking for a price so we can buy out, or are you looking for other firms to buy the contract and renegotiate the number?
I think a full range of options are on the table.
Okay, you're going to present multiple options.
Yeah,
okay.
We really want to crunch the numbers and let the numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah.
The economics of the renewable energy industry are changing so rapidly every year that it's really worth taking another hard look at it and running these numbers. We think that we can do considerably better for the city with this.
I would
Can't do worse.
wholeheartedly agree, and I'm glad it's finally come back to us. It's something we talked about, I think, almost 3 years ago. Ray, was it?
3 years ago, yeah.
So I appreciate your firm coming out and taking the lead on this. And Bill, thank you for following up on this very important matter here. Any other questions? Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Marty Richmond.
Good evening again. I wonder if you've ever had any public speaker come up here and just sit here for 3 minutes and say, I told you so, for 3 solid minutes. I'm considering it. I came here and fought like heck when they bought this on board and said, you are paying 2 to 3 times what the going rate is today, and by the time you're finished, you'll be screaming, how do I get out of this contract? But you know, I didn't have a vote, and you know how it is. Somebody in the audience, well, they're just wasting our time. You guys weren't all here, but you know, people who are here, oh, you're wasting our time. What do you know about the cost of this stuff? And I said, any contract where you have to pay for power that is not used and not delivered for you can't be a good contract. I kind of learned that in Brooklyn when I grew up. Okay, where it said, you got to pay even though you don't get the electricity. When I read that paragraph, I said, I knew guys on the block used to draw up contracts like that, and if you didn't pay up, they come break your legs, okay? But you know, the guy who ran it through, a member of the board here, he had a good friend in the industry. He knew what he was doing, and it was going to be good. It was good for him. He got a nice little chunk out of it. It wasn't too good for the taxpayers. Maybe sometimes, not just me, maybe sometimes us little squirts know something. And when we come up here and tell you, you're getting taken for a ride, maybe you ought to just listen to the people in the audience every once in a while. Because we have had the bad experience of being on the wrong end of contracts and arrangements and deals like this. So I'm not going to stand here for 3 minutes and say I told you so, but I'm going to take my pound of flesh out of, hopefully the people involved are looking, I hope, on the television. And I hope they realize what a shame it is that they put this on top of the taxpayers for self-aggrandizement and because they were absolutely too stupid to read the contract. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and I couldn't agree more.
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from council? Is there a motion?
So moved.
The motion
Second.
from Mr. Aguilar.
Okay.
And there was a second from Councilmember Friend. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We're going to move to item F7.
Mr. Mayor? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah,
Councilmember-
Mr. Mayor, after speaking with the city attorney and recusing myself from the dispensary item when it was first heard, I have to recuse myself from items 7 and 8.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Clower?
Mr. Mayor, based on the advice of the city attorney, I as well will be recusing myself from items 7 and 8, and I'll be back for 9. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Aguilar?
And Mr. Mayor, for the reasons previously announced by the city attorney, I will also be recusing myself. Even though I'm an independent contractor with the law firm of L&G, it's my understanding that L&G has represented some of the dispensary or cannabis-related applicants either here or in other jurisdictions, and to avoid any appearance of a potential conflict or an actual conflict of interest, even though I haven't represented ever any cannabis-related clients in any capacity, I am recusing myself on this item at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Want to move forward with the item?
Yeah.
I would, at the last meeting, I was the dissenting vote as far as the Monterey Bay alternative care issue. So I want to bring that back for a discussion in the future. And what I'd like to see happen tonight is continue this item and the ability to bring back for review the Monterey Bay alternative care to the October 2nd meeting. If that would work with the other council members.
So with the dispensaries, you want to bring back Monterey Bay Alternative Care Medicine along with higher level of care, which is item 7, and then item 8 and 9 as well, all at the same time on the same night.
What?
Not 9.
I think I wanted to do
I'm sorry,
item,
not 9.
Yeah,
Sorry,
one
not
item
9.
at a time, and we'll start with the item 7.
Okay.
It gives everyone the time to
Do you need a motion to do
their
that?
presentation. I'd like to make a motion to bring back Monterey Bay into the mix and then continue this item until October 2nd.
Second. So moved. Oh, you made a motion?
I made a motion.
I'll second that.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. With item 8, I'd like to recommend the same, continue that till the October 2nd meeting.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I'll second that.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not open up for public comment on 7, so let me step back. Do we have speaker cards for item 7?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do.
Okay, let's make sure we open up for that public comment.
You're opening for comment.
Public comment, sorry.
We continued.
That was my mistake there.
We continued it. Why would you have open comment?
Well,
Sal
we
Palma?
still have a chance to speak on it. One of the requirements for
Good evening, Mayor and council staff. I guess being that the item's been continued, I'd like to go ahead and just retract my speaker card in the interest of everybody's time this evening. So I will see you all on the 2nd of October.
Thank you for that, and thank you. Sorry for the confusion there. Are there any others?
Marty Richmond?
I will be brief, which is not usual. Thank you. I'm going to wrap up all my cannabis comments in one comment, and if you keep it in mind, I will not have anything to say next time on it. They say ignorance is bliss. I'm ignorant on this because I'm blissful because I'm ignorant. I have not even read anybody's application. I have no horse in this race. I have no recommendation. I don't want any. I have nobody that I want disqualified. I have nobody I want to go to the head of the list. But I would like to ask you to use your best judgment and to look at these applications for the dispensary, particularly synergistically, take everything into account and pick the best. Whatever the best is, whatever your personal judgment is. Not the first, not the biggest, not the smallest, not any other influence, but the one that offers the best for the community. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Sean Donahue?
I suppose I could withdraw my comment as well. It was made in light of the motion to move forward and the staff recommendation to move forward with higher level of care. I would point out the irony, though, of continuing the motion based upon bringing another application into the mix when that application had been pointed out by the mayor making the motion as being too close to a residential structure. So I'm a little bit unclear now why you would be continuing an item to bring another application into the mix when you already had indicated that specific applicant in regards to its geography was too close to a residence, frankly. So it would seem that this is kicking the can down the road just to continue the same sort of, discussion to relitigate the ordinance later on down the line.
Okay, thank you.
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
All right. That was for item 7. We did make that. So we'll go through item 8 before we do the motions. I think we made our comments. Do we have speaker card for item 8?
Yes. Taylor Rodriguez.
Honorable Mayor, council members, I'm requesting that the item be moved to the October 16th City Council meeting. And the reason I'm requesting this not be on the meeting of the October 2nd is because the appeals later on tonight are set to be set for the October 2nd meeting, and I would like the outcome of the appeals to take effect before the determination of the dispensary applicant for the second, second license. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
For clarity, City Manager, is that October 2nd when the appeals are going to be heard?
Yeah, we would have the appeals heard first, and then we can have these agendized after that.
After.
Yeah.
I do have one more speaker, though, for F9, but I don't know if you're there yet. So
You are not there yet.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion for continuing this item to October 2nd. Councilmember Luna, you would second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Now we'll move to item F9. I want to call back, I believe, Councilmember Clower and Gilio both. We're going to be back in this item.
So F7 and F8.
Continue to October 2nd. Okay, so you guys are good. We're back to item F9. And you're both
Yes.
okay. All right.
Good evening, everyone. The item before you guys was requested to come back tonight at the August 21st council meeting. And the item basically is they're requesting to have, Traditional Roots is requesting to operate a medical cannabis cultivation and manufacturing facility off of 1091 San Felipe Road. It is zoned light industrial, and just some really short information about it. It's approximately 1.5 acres, and the building is approximately 22,811 square foot building. Again, they are proposing to do cultivation and manufacturing at this time. They did have a dispensary application in the past, but they withdrew it.
Okay. Is there any questions from council? Do we have any speaker cards on this item?
Travis Smith.
Good evening. Travis Smith from Watsonville, and I own a business here in Hollister at the airport, and you guys are doing a great job maintaining the airport. No problems there at all. But the reason I'm here to talk about this particular thing is because I've known Idris pretty much my whole life. I grew up in Watsonville, where his family owned the little convenience store that was right by my house in a working class neighborhood. He sold wine and beer. He sold cigarettes and gas. I mean, a pretty well-regulated industry. He ran a good business, and you know, for being kind of a rougher neighborhood, there were never any problems at his store. No loitering, nothing bad going on there. He's also owned other gas stations that had full-on alcohol sales there. Again, no problem with any of that stuff. And I just would. He'd be the kind of applicant that you guys would want, that would be able to navigate the complex rules that the state's going to come down on, and what you guys are going to change. You're going to want someone that can handle those things and is going to be willing to work with you. He's also been a public works contractor, and he did a big project at Cabrillo when he moved into construction. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen the amount of paperwork and stuff you have to do to, have a construction project at Cabrillo. But, I mean, it's stacks and stacks that you have to go through. So this guy's going to be able to navigate the complex regulations of the industry without any problem, in my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Becerra.
So, good evening, City Council and Mayor. Steve Becerra, Hollister resident. I just wanted to point something out. I thought it was listening to the earlier conversations about what we can expect for income from taxes and so on regarding these cannabis industries. I just find it interesting, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention. This is not from me. This is from the state's most prominent grower, cultivator, cannabis voice trade organization, which is the California Growers Association. And this was from July 26th in Sacramento, where their executive director, I think it's Zeke Allen, was there and made a comment. And he warned that California cannabis industry is producing 8 times the medical cannabis that's consumed in the state. A couple interesting things. He said, some marijuana growers will stay in the black market and continue to illegally sell cannabis to other states, which is also not allowed under federal law, said Haziki Allen, executive director of the California Growers Association. We are producing too much, Allen said. Adding state licensed growers are going to have to scale back, and we are on a painful downsizing curve. And what he's talking about is that indicating that the current medical cannabis growers have a surplus. And he understands that surplus is going to the black market, going to other states, not legally, that I am aware of, and also in violation of federal law. So, and also starting January 1st, the California is going to have a law in place that's going to ban medical cannabis that is grown in California from being sent to other states. So you've done a good job. We have, we started out with people wanting access to medicine in this community, and we're going to do that for them. And along comes the other issues, other cannabis businesses. And I just think that you've already approved a number of cultivation growers in the city, and I think that it may be time just to sit back a little bit and let these growers be good community members and see how it goes. The County of Santa Clara is currently thinking about a 2-year moratorium on any cultivation in the county. They haven't done it yet, but they're working towards it. So I just encourage you to take your time. I don't think we want to contribute and just have, I've heard something about 80 more applicants and some possible 700 or 70,000 square foot facility that may be coming for growing. Do we really want to contribute to the black market if they've already got a surplus? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sean Donahue.
Thanks, Steve. I know Hezekiah Allen, the executive director of the California Growers Association, of which, of course, I'm a local politics and electoral affairs advisor to for the last several years. He was at the Sacramento Press Club speaking, of course, about unlicensed grows in other parts of the state. We're talking about outdoor grows in the Emerald Triangle. We're not talking about a very modest, under 20,000 square foot facility under lock, key, badge, biometrics, security cameras galore, and if you would make that statement as regards towards overcultivation in regards to an 18,000 foot facility, why didn't you say that for a 70,000 foot facility? It would seem a little bit at odds. The oversupply, of course, is an oversupply of the unregulated market, the oversupply of untested, unsurveilled, frankly, off the grid that's again, we're having a conversation of apples and oranges rather than apples and apples. You've already approved CUPs for other cultivation facilities, for other manufacturing facilities that were completely compliant with the ordinance that was described over a year and a half, and here we are. I don't see anything at odds with the facility. If there's not enough speaker cards yet, I'm not quite sure about the procedure because we're dealing with a non-dispensary applicant, but I believe Mr. Mosin and Elia and I may have additional questions that we might answer if there's sufficient time for other speaking to take place on this item before it runs out.
Thank you.
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Unless you want to speak? Yeah. All right, here we go.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Idris Mosin. I'm the applicant for 1091 San Felipe Road. I think Sean basically covered everything, but I am no longer applying for a dispensary, so we're just a cultivation manufacturing facility. And just to speak a little bit on security, and I'll keep it brief, the facility will be secured by a screen fence surrounding the property. And we have a gate, motorized gate in the front with a security personnel on the front of the property. All exterior and sensitive doors will have biometric hardware, so everybody that is employed at the facility will need to have their fingerprints. They'll check their fingerprints on the hardware to get into the facility or any sensitive areas. There will be no signage in the front of the building, so we're just going to have an address for fire department purposes. The facility would have a total of 56 cameras, 26 inside and 30 outside, with real-time feed to the Hollister police if requested. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from council? No questions? Is there a motion?
I'd make the motion that we approve 2017-228.
Second.
The motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against? I'll be the no vote. Motion carries 4-1. All right, we're going to move to item G1, reports from city council members.
Oh, wait, Mr. Mayor, I have a request. Can we move G4 to right now? We have a member in the audience that came a long distance from Wildan and would like to give his report on the traffic impact fee so he can hit traffic and go home.
I was going to say, did he fly in on a G4?
As much as he probably loved to hear all the reports.
Yes, that would be.
Would that please the council?
Very much. Okay. That would be very fair.
Okay.
Traffic impact.
We don't get it.
Good evening, council members.
You're welcome, Carlos.
We're stuck here forever.
You may recall that you approved a resolution last November initiating a professional services agreement with Wildan Financial Services to revise the traffic impact piece for the city of Hollister. And I'd like to introduce Carlos Villarreal from Wildan Financial. He's going to present some of the preliminary findings.
Yeah. Thanks, Mary. I'm just going to give you a high-level overview, just give you a real brief background on what impact fees are, when they can be used for, and then get into the results of the analysis and let you know what we've changed this time around. So first, just so everyone's aware, it sounds like most folks are, but impact fees are one-time fees charged to new development, typically a building permit, and they're only to be used to fund facilities that will serve that new development. So they can't be used for operations and maintenance. And in California, they're regulated by the Mitigation Fee Act, Government Code 66,000. So there were two major fee program revisions to the traffic impact fee, the COGS traffic impact fee that you had adopted in this draft analysis. The first is that we added 4 new land use categories, and I'll talk about those a little bit more in a minute. And then we also reallocated some of the project costs from having all development pay for them to having residential pay for those costs. So the new land use categories, we added new categories for one-bedroom apartments and studio apartments, and the logic there being that smaller dwelling units have less people in them and generate fewer trips, and thus they should be charged lower impact fees proportionally. And then on the residential side, we added land use categories for local serving commercial and industrial land uses based on the logic that local serving commercial and industrial will be taking commuter trips off the roads because those jobs will be staying in town. So regarding the project cost reallocation, based on some input from city staff, we were able to divide the project list into 4 main categories. The first category is projects that primarily serve commuter segments in the PM peak hour when traffic is the worst. Second category being primarily residential segments. Third being a mixed commercial and residential. And the fourth, primarily industrial job generating type projects. So for the first 3 categories, the logic there is that but for residential development, those projects would not be needed. So the project responsibility was shifted completely to residential development for those 3 categories. And then for the job-generating industrial segments, those are still going to be spread amongst all residential and non-residential development within the city. So to give you a little sense of which projects went where, and I've split it into two slides here so you can see what's going on. The primary commuter road segments and the primary residential road segments are shown here. The big ticket item here is that Highway 25 widening, coming in at about $84.5 million. So I can pause here while you take a look. And then the next slide, we have the next 2 sets of categories, project categories, the mixed commercial industrial segments, and then the primarily industrial segments. So what does this all mean? The top set of this table here shows that 190.3 million of these projects have been allocated primarily to residential development. The other projects in the other categories, totaling about 42.9 million, will be split or allocated to all of development within the city. And the total allocation to Zone 2, which is the Hollister zone, is still the same as it was before. So there's no projects being added or removed. We're just shifting the allocation within the fee program. Total allocation to the zone is still at $233 million. So what does this look like when it comes to the fee schedule? This is the draft fee schedule. A single-family home is coming in at $18,690. As you can see there, we have added the 1-bedroom apartment, studio apartment, and those local serving commercial and industrial fee categories. And then to put this, also I should add, these are the maximum justified impact fees. The City Council certainly has the ability to charge a fee that's lower than this, and I believe staff's recommendation will be to have some reduced categories for the 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, and studio apartments that are within a quarter-mile of commercial uses and transit. And then finally, we have a comparison to the existing fee schedule. So you can see it's about a 30% increase, I believe, for the residential land uses. Again, shifting that burden of those projects from being citywide or allocated to all development to simply being allocated to residential development. And you can see the pretty onerous fees on commercial and office uses have decreased significantly, about 80%, again, based on shifting those project costs to residential. And with this, I think this is the end of my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the analysis, and I'm sure staff can address some of the policy issues as well.
Thank you. Is there any questions from council? Vice Mayor Clara?
When we talk about transit, would that include bus stops?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Okay, and so when we say commercial, what extent does the commercial project have to be to actually qualify for that carve out?
So according to the staff report, I'm seeing it has to be within a quarter mile of commercial uses that provide day-to-day commercial services and transit services. But I would let staff speak more to that.
So let's say because we have very limited public transportation here in town. Let's say we end up with neighborhood commercial along Fairview or somewhere else where the bus just doesn't go. Is a sandwich shop and a gas station, is that going to be enough to leave room for this carve-out?
Well, two things. They do have fixed route systems, but the San Diego Express, they update their route maps frequently. And so I think there have, say for instance, there was the Estancia, what they call it, Silver Oaks. When that project was going to development review, that's a senior housing project, if you recall, by the hospital. One of the things that they were looking at is where to put that bus stop to provide the service for that. So that's an adaptable service. And so if the need is there, then the transit service will be there also.
Okay, so then we can assume that if a school goes in somewhere, there's going to be a bus stop associated with that school.
I think that's fair.
Okay, because my concern is that eventually we're going to have schools that go in on the further outskirts of town, and we should hopefully provide some sort of multifamily residential near the school so that people who can't afford to buy a house, a big house, let's say, because they're probably going to be in a more expensive area if it's on the outskirts of town, that we can allow for multifamily in those areas so that kids can walk back and forth to school. That's kind of my big concern. I appreciate the numbers. I like them. But I just want to make sure that when we actually get into a practical sense, and then if we're talking about some of the, I guess, our wish list for the program, I know my wish list is going to include some multifamily housing, and a lot of these projects are going to come before us in the next few years. I want to make sure that we can help get those units built.
And looking forward to your update to the general plan, if you're thinking of the expectation to reduce vehicle miles traveled with SB 375, part of that could be that combining those land uses, making sure that there's a priority for the multifamily to be by schools, and then also to be providing perhaps some of those commercial nodes so that if you run out of milk, you can just walk to the market. You're not hopping in a car.
Absolutely. And I think, at least just kind of running through in my head, most of the schools that I can think of, there's a bus stop like right in front of them. So I'm sure they kind of create the route to hit all the different schools. I'm not sure about Sierra Vista, but the other ones, I think so.
I can say that it did. What bogged down bringing this to you sooner was trying to see if we could get the fees lower for the studio and the multifamily, because we understand that can be a barrier to producing that kind of housing stock, and we couldn't find the nexus with the trips, right?
Yes, when we looked into it, we were hoping that there was some sort of data we could hang our hat on between single family versus multifamily in terms of trip characteristics. And unfortunately, all the data that's out there kind of lumps residential together. So we wanted to try to structure a bigger difference between the single and the multi, but on a technical basis, weren't able to, unfortunately.
But there was a trails symposium at Fort Ord last year, the year before, and they had a variety of speakers. One of them talked about transit-oriented development, and the speaker, and she's with Strategic Economics, and there's a report that she's cited where they did a survey, and they found that for transit or higher density development near those commercial day-to-day services, that's a land use that can almost start to pay its way.
Okay. Any other questions? No. I do have a question. Your number for Highway 25, I think you pointed out 80 million. That is for one of the phases. So,
yeah.
How are you using that? How'd you come about that number?
Yeah. So let me pull up the report here. So the 85 million, that is the share, or 84.5 million. And if you're looking at the staff report, that's in Table 4 of the zone allocation costs, or the project costs allocated to the zones. 84.5 million, that's the share for Phase 1. and that is the share that's allocated to Zone 2. There are some costs for that project that will be paid by the other zones. It's a 3-zone system in the county, and there's other costs that can't be paid for through the impact fee because they are associated with what we call external trips, so trips that start and end outside of the county.
Okay, so those are the numbers we can justify.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, thank you. All right. Do we have any comment cards?
No, Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry?
We have no speakers, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor.
Let's see here. Well,
We are looking for a recommendation to return with the resolution to adopt the impact fees, but we're also seeking direction to lower the impact fees for the studio apartments, 1-bedroom apartments, and perhaps if there's a small home also that has 2 bedrooms where there isn't a potential to convert it, a den or something, to a 3rd bedroom.
so the question I would have on that, if you're going to reduce those numbers more, where would you make up the other numbers?
This is, I think,
Yeah,
Carlos.
I would just add that reducing the numbers is a policy decision, so we've given you the maximum justified fees, and theoretically, if all the development that was assumed in the study occurs and these fees are paid, then you'll fully fund the program, or at least Hollister's share of the program. To the extent that you lower any fees, again, this is the max justified, so you can certainly adopt a fee that's lower. But to the extent that you adopt a fee that's lower, the difference will have to be paid for by some other funding source other than the impact fee. So you can't shift it to another land use and have another land use pay more, but you can, say, fund it with any other revenue source, general fund, state grants, federal grants, gas tax, et cetera, et cetera.
I think personally, I'm comfortable with the numbers you have here. I have a hard time trying to get to a different outcome, and hoping we find another source. That may be in the future, but I don't see it at this point.
Yeah, and also the fee program gets revised every 5 years or so, a comprehensive update. So at that time, if other monies have come to fruition, you could certainly use them to pay the alternative share at that point as well.
Okay, thank you. No other questions? Okay. Is there a consensus to go ahead and move forward with this?
As we move forward, we're looking at the 2017 draft numbers. That's where you're at. With that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. All right, now we'll move to G1.
Okay, thank you for letting us move that up.
No, thank you for bringing that up. I didn't catch it.
Yeah.
G1, reports from city council members. Councilmember Luna?
I have no report.
Councilmember Friend?
No, I had no committees.
Vice Mayor Clower?
Had a ad hoc committee meeting with the joint use agreement for facilities owned by Hollister School District, and I think we finally have come to a place where we can kind of look forward to hopefully having a possible agreement put forward before the council in the next month or two. There's still some small details that need to be ironed out, and it's got to go through legal, but I think most of the big things are taken care of, and hopefully we'll be able to talk about it soon and get some serious support for it, because it's going to be some changes in how we operate from the current agreement, but also some exciting things are going to happen in terms of actual facilities.
Excellent. Councilmember Gilio?
No, sir. Thank you.
Did you have? I'm sorry.
No, sir. Thank
Okay. I don't have any other. I don't have reports either. We'll move to item G2, informational reports from City Council. Councilmember Luna?
I just wanted to see if there was a possibility that the city could look into the sidewalk signs down on the sidewalk in San Benito Street. I think I've counted about 5 or 6 signs that are actually right in the middle of the sidewalk. And there's one business that has it in front of their door. I don't see how customers get in and out their door. But I'd be afraid that somebody would fall, or bump into those signs. I mean, nowadays everybody is texting and nobody's knowing where they're going. And so, I mean, I'd be afraid somebody is going to walk right into a sign and fall over on the sidewalk. Is there any possibility that the city can just look into that and speak with the business owners so that they can
we
move
could do
into
some
the sign?
educational. We'll reach out to those business owners and make sure that they have proper clearance. We can do
Right.
that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Front.
A couple things. One, we had the occasion last weekend, due to the temperatures, to open up the Veterans Hall as a cooling center. We actually had, I believe, 12 people come. We could have taken a lot more, but only 12 people came. But it was open Friday and Saturday, so just a nice way to be able to offer that up to the community if we get to that situation. Make sure the fire department and the police department know about it. I don't think they did on Friday, but they did on Saturday. So. And the other thing is, and I mentioned it earlier, in our budget session, we gave $2,500 to the Parks and Recs department to start a program called Guitars Not Guns for children to learn how to play guitars. And the Parks Department decided not to do it. Where did that $2,500 go?
Well, if it's part of if we did it during the budget process for that particular program, it's in the operating budget for the City of Hollister's Recreation Department. So that's where that money sits. If there's not any expenditures coming from there, then you'll have a $2,500 savings at the end of the year for that particular product or program.
Okay, I want to make sure that we keep track of that, or the city could donate it to the existing group that started up. And for everybody that's interested, they'll have their first graduation this Saturday. Graduating about 22 children on their first 8 weeks. They'll start their second 8 weeks. So that's all.
Good. Vice Mayor Clark.
Yeah, I want to give a quick shout out to Public Works. Had a couple of things come up in District 3. A tree branch fell down and was completely blocking the sidewalk, and I think within an hour it was chipped and gone. And then there was a little issue regarding some maintenance on a sound wall, and that was taken care of within 36 hours. So response time's been pretty awesome. Second thing, I attended a meeting at the high school last week regarding their Measure U, I think it was, the most recent bond measure that they did in the projects that they're putting forward. And it was a really neat meeting to be invited to, because there was people from the county sheriff's department, there was PD was there, fire was there, trustees from their board were there, staff and their architects and everything. And there's a lot going on over there. I can say, at least from that meeting, it looks like the high school is doing a good job of planning ahead. And if there's an emergency, they're already interacting with the different departments that would have to respond to that. And it's kind of a weird situation because you do have multiple jurisdictions on campus. So if you're in one part, somebody shows up. If you're in another part, different person shows up. But they're already planning for all that. There's going to be some pretty neat buildings and PE facilities going up. It looks like they've already done a lot, and they have, but they're probably only about a third of the way there. So very exciting stuff.
Councilman Gilliam?
I have to echo what Councilmember Clower said. I actually had streets and tree issues come up as well. Funny, a retaining wall actually and a tree. And within, I would say, even less than 36 hours, it was handled and taken care of. Very impressed by the responsiveness. Thanks to Councilmember Friend and the vets down at Vets Hall for opening up the upstairs to Vets Hall. I understand there was an event downstairs, so there was a little bit of confusion, but thanks for fire and PD for also, and city manager for taking the call on the weekend and getting that set up. It was the highest I saw it on my truck was 116 degrees, and that's incredible heat. So thank you for doing that. And then one reminder. Hopefully we can get out in the newspapers and social media. Maybe everybody on the council can agree to put it out this Saturday between 9 and 12 a.m. Right? Is that the right hours? Make sure I have it right.
Yes.
City manager will be here in this room answering any questions you have about development, but I'm sure if you had other questions about how the city operated or functioned, he would probably be happy to answer them.
Any and all questions, and come anytime.
I will actually be here as well, and if you have any questions for me, I'll be here as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I want to ask if we can get the sidewalk cleaner back out on downtown sidewalks. I noticed they're
Bubbles? Okay.
Well, they're looking bubbles. That are a nickname for it now, bubbles. It's getting pretty dirty out there, and especially around the benches. I've noticed underneath them they're.
I think West Coast has one or two more days trimming trees. Can we wait until it's
absolutely.
basically done? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And as you bring up the West Coast, I've sent you several pictures of overgrown trees. I just can't believe they're to that level.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed driving around after I received several of those pictures, Monterey Street has several of those also. And if we can put a priority on some of those that are just, the trees look like big bushes now on some of those streets. And I think we can get to those sooner rather than later.
I'll see if I can have Derek's guys go.
Yeah, as the guys are driving around, they could pick those out because some of them are just, I mean.
Is the 867 Monterey, has that one been taken care of yet?
I think that was one of the ones I saw out there, but there's quite a few that look like giant bushes.
Got it.
Also, what I did notice as I was doing that, the street cleaning company is doing a great job. Unfortunately, he just can't do his job. He's dodging cars throughout the neighborhoods, and I think it's time we really have a conversation about restricting parking during street sweeping hours, because I'm amazed that the street sweeper has to dodge 5-6 cars at a time, and we're not getting our streets cleaned. And I've noticed that we have a lot of cars that, I don't want to say they're abandoned, but they just never move. And it's not fair to those in the community that are doing their part to keep our city clean. And it also, unfortunately, leads to more cars, again, up on those lawns. And it's just not what we want in our community, and people have to understand that it does affect property values. So if we can look into perhaps a policy as far as the no parking during the street sweeping hours in different times, obviously.
Yeah, one of the things that I always wanted to try to do is have the street sweepers come around later in the day, when if it's true that 75% of this community leaves from 9 to 5, then that's probably the best time to do street sweeping. We can look at times and we can look at the dates, and I'm just curious how are you looking at how would you look at actual enforcement, citations, have an amnesty period? What's the thought? And I mean, this is a whole nother discussion, but
it's a whole different discussion. Yeah. But what I've seen in different cities is that street sweeping usually happens between 8 or 9 in the morning through 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so it gives a chance for people to go off to work. The goal is not to cite the public, but obviously we can warn them or give them notice until people learn to move the cars off the street during that day every other week. Yeah. So I think it's gotten to the point where it's a sad thing to see that much out there, and the street sweeper can't do anything about it. And then we get the calls about the street sweeper not coming through the neighborhood. Well, he did, but he had to avoid the whole street.
He swept the lane.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I have. City manager?
I have nothing this evening.
City attorney?
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry?
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Chief?
Nothing.
City clerk?
Nothing.
All right. Let's move to item G3.
This item is a report on placement of gateway signs. As you may recall, you reviewed a proposal to approve the construction of 3 gateway signs on August 21st, and staff was directed to identify locations closer to highways rather than, it was recommended on the 21st to have the one that's already been in the works and planned at the intersection of 4th and Graph. Staff recommended a second gateway sign within a future roundabout at Gateway and San Felipe Road, and then one at Highway 25 and Union on the Fire Station 2 property. So we took a look at other possible locations, with the priority being the highways leading into Hollister. Also, locations identified in the multi-agency wayfinding plan, proximity to the city limits, and available land with good visibility. One of the sites that in the wayfinding plan, coming in on Highway 25, the location for the gateway sign is closer to Flynn Road. And then on San Felipe Road, in the wayfinding sign plan, the recommended location is near the entrance to the Hollister Municipal Airport. Staff's recommending that we replace the existing Gateway Welcome to Hollister sign and put the Pinnacles Welcome Gateway sign at Highway 25 and San Felipe Road. We're recommending that it be elevated above the existing fence. We think that the sign that's there could be relocated to another location in the city of Hollister. I talked to a sign company today, and they thought that would be feasible. Their estimate for that cost could be close to $5,000. One of the reasons we're recommending that the sign be located there is when the sign, as you probably know, was initially installed, that was a Leadership San Benito County class project for 2010. At the time, Pinnacles was a monument. It wasn't a national park. And we're recommending placing the sign there because that would capture traffic coming into Hollister on Highway 25, as well as Hollister that comes from Highway 156, 152 into our community, say, heading to the Pinnacles. We understand that if you go to Google Maps, they may take you on Fairview Road. That's another project we can work on to try and keep them off Fairview Road. But that's one recommended location. A second recommended location, again, this is keeping in mind we're trying to have the signage on the highway, not if backing up to what the recommendation in the wayfinding sign plan. There was a gateway sign a little bit to the east, closer to the entrance to our water reclamation facility, and then we have the gateway sign at 4th and Graff. This island here could be a potential location. We would have to get permission from Caltrans for an encroachment permit. I spoke with Mary Gilbert at COG. She said one of the things they would also be concerned about having a sign in that location is a vehicle crashing into it. So we'd have to make sure that it was a location that was acceptable for Caltrans. We don't know how long that would take. Also talked to the sign consultant, and they indicated that when you move a sign to different locations, they said they could work with us and bring renderings, but sometimes it alters the scale that one might want just so that it's not lost in its position. So this is an option. If the sign is placed here, it could be that the one at 4th and Graff would become redundant. We have funding earmarked from COG for $50,000 for a gateway feature there. If it's the pleasure of the city council, we could have one at this location and one at 4th and Graff, or there could be a different design for the sign at 4th and Graff. Staff recognizes that the city council didn't support the concept of a gateway sign at the south entrance of the city. Nevertheless, our wayfinding plan showed a Welcome to Hollister sign just a little bit south of the intersection of Ridgemark Drive and Fairview Road. This slide here shows some potential locations for a gateway sign. Again, I think staff if there is going to be a gateway sign in this part of our community, would again recommend at the intersection of Union and Airline Highway near Fire Station 2, because that's capturing a lot of the traffic that comes from 156 to destinations in South Hollister, such as Bellato Park, Pinnacles National Park. There's New Idria Historic Park, all those Ridgemark. There's also where Enterprise Road was realigned, there's some county land, and there's a bit of a slope and topography and some trees that could be a possible location for a gateway sign. Also, at the intersection of Airline Highway and Fairview Road and Ridgemark Drive, it could be harder to find, or that would require permission from a property owner or easement at that location. But today we're seeking direction, then we'd like to return with more definitive information on costs.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council? Councilor McGillio?
No, at least
I think one thing that's important about the gateway signs is to note that they're really for branding. I don't think somebody's going to be driving by on Highway 101 or 156 or 152 and see a nice, beautiful Pinnacle sign and say, oh man, I'm going to turn left and go to the Pinnacles. I think it's more for the branding, right? We want people to see that over and over and over again as they're traveling to the Pinnacles, that we are the, what would be considered the east gateway to the Pinnacle. Soledad has branded themselves as the west gateway, and that's kind of what they did with their branding signs. I think wayfinding signs are super important to have in strategic locations, and branding signs I think are for a different purpose, so we need to consider that as we're selecting where to put them. And critical things like you talked about are Caltrans easements and Caltrans safety, and that's going to cost money and staff time, and if there's other locations that don't require that, I think we should seriously consider that. And you mentioned property owner easements. The property owner might want some money to give them that easement to put the sign on their property. So things to think about as we decide where these signs go.
Okay. Vice Mayor Clower?
I think my favorite location of all the ones proposed is the one where there's already a sign. I think it makes the most sense from just the directions that you're going to receive from Google or Yahoo Maps or whoever. That's the one that people are going to drive by. I don't mind the idea of the one in the Caltrans triangle at 4th and 156, but I would prefer that we really try to do whatever we can to actually get some commercial right there, because I think that'll do a lot more for the city than a sign would. Those are kind of my main points. I think it would be nice if we can get the correct location on the south side of town, but it's all about finding the spot that the people are actually going to see when they're driving where they're driving anyways. Because like Councilmember Gillio said, it's going to be difficult to get somebody to go off the road that they're already destined to be on by some computer model or ones and zeros that's telling them where to drive.
Councilmember Friend, did you have a comment?
No, I like the 156 and 4th Street, and I think that was pointed out several years ago as that's where the gateway should be. I like the one. I didn't like Union Road and 25 because they're already in town before they see that, but it is a wayfaring sign, so I'd like to see the costs on the new ones. But it's funny that Caltrans would be concerned about a sign on that island, but they're not concerned about the trees that are there.
Well, we haven't asked the question yet, but there's a TAC meeting Thursday. We wanted direction before we ask.
I think that one's an excellent one to capture.
The concept of 25 in San Felipe, removing the existing sign, which could always go to the south side of the city, that'd probably be a good placement for that as people are coming back into Hollister.
Up by
the triangle there, probably a good place, but I think it would have to be elevated to really have the impact. I know what they're saying about if it's too small, it's just not going to have the impact.
There is a bit of a slope.
Right.
And then one of the issues coming in then that section of San Juan Hollister Road between 156 and the bridge, some people could consider some of that blighted. we have a nice sign, but I guess that's something we can work on also.
Well, I think, by getting the sign on 156, as was pointed out here, it's not that somebody's going to turn off that day. They're on their way somewhere, but they're going to start in their mind thinking about coming back. So how do we get it closer to the 156 where thousands of people are seeing it on a daily basis? Make sure we're lighting it up and doing the things we need to do. And maybe it's there, maybe it's a little further west on 156, so people have a chance to make that turn if they so choose, right? So, but I think definitely better options this time around.
Okay.
Councilor Linda, did you have any comments or questions?
Of course, being on my district, on the 156, there's much needed there, and that sign would, I think, make a difference of people coming in. People still come in, they still get off the bypass coming into Hollister, and I think anything that we can attract there, for pinnacles or anything else is good.
So I think I did hear more of a consensus as far as the 25 San Felipe,
I think that's all
the
right.
156 over there, and maybe moving the existing sign south.
Yeah,
Is
that
that
would
right?
be a lot.
How about the
cheaper
third
way to
one we're
go.
talking about 3, right?
That would be moving the existing sign further south. That would be the
Or if you
Fire
want, if
station
that could
two.
also be, say, in a roundabout at Gateway Drive or near the entrance to downtown or something.
Well, or out by Station 2.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a good welcoming back into Hollister sign.
Okay.
Would work for right now.
Okay. Well,
We're all good?
bring back some costs,
All right.
more information. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary.
All right, H. Where are we at now? Oh, J1, we have more to go, huh? Oh, boy. J1?
Mr. Mayor, I need to recuse myself from items J1 through 4.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I
We've
also
already set them.
will be recusing myself based on advice of the city attorney from my prior recusal. Thank you.
Didn't we already set the date for review?
This is a appeal.
And you said it was on October 2.
Well, hopefully now.
No, we have to
You just got to make it
set
official.
the date. Okay, let's move to item.
So I'll be recusing myself as well.
Well, then I'm going home too.
I'd like to make a motion that J1, 2, and 3
Well, let's
be moved to October 2.
Let's. So the question is setting time for. We'll start with J1.
Okay.
Okay. And your recommendation is October
October
2nd. Do we have any speaker cards on that?
No, Mr. Mayor?
Do we need a motion or just a consensus?
I
on
think if you gave me a motion, it's a lot cleaner.
It's
Okay.
cleaner, yes.
So moved.
The motion, is there a second? Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
We'll go to J2. Your recommendation is also October 2nd.
Yes, sir.
Do we
So
have any
moved.
speaker cards on that item?
No, Mr. Mayor?
Okay.
So
There's
moved.
motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. And on item 3, your recommendation is October 2nd also?
Yes.
Okay. Any speaker cards on that one?
No, Mr. Mayor?
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And on item 4,
Same.
October 2nd. Any speaker cards? All right, is there a motion on that item? Motion is second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we can invite them back in.
Yeah, right. Or was a super good alibi. You can go do it.
Councilmember Flowers in the restroom. So.
Okay, we don't need them. Item K, there's no business. Is there a motion to?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Third.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.